Publishing Services, employees conceded today the 27-year-old is not even particularly attractive.
Brian gets a lot of attention from girls around here, but if I saw him in a bar, I don't know if I would even notice him. Put him next to Glenn or Mike, and then, sure, he actually looks pretty good. Co-workers explained to reporters that by everyday standards, Tyler would at best be considered moderately good-looking, but explained that given the abundance of unattractive men at the publishing firm, female employees often go out of their way to make small talk with the 27-year-old at his desk or eat lunch with him in the office kitchen.
I saw him walking to work the other day, and half the guys on the street were easily better looking than him. But here, he's the hottest guy around. It's almost kind of sad. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd still him.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160 to call into Free Talk Live and bring up whatever is on your mind. That means you can change the topic, you can comment on what we're talking about. It's up to you, because that's what Free Talk Live is all about. And on the show with you tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Stu, and Jay Noon.
We haven't had Jay on in a while, so welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. It's been busy, and I didn't really want to come back until we, had a time shift, daylight shifting time, because just daylight hours are pretty valuable. So now it is, dark by 5 o'clock. It's not really a big deal.
I am all for stopping all the changes, but I don't want to change it into this, even though some people claim this is correct. I want to change it into, after March, just leave it like that, and then never change it into, it's dark at 1 freaking p.m.
Yeah, my 4-year-old
Not
Cypress,
but
she's like, why are we changing the clocks?
I know, why?
She's like, why does anybody even care?
Yeah.
She's like, she just couldn't believe we were changing the clocks. Yeah, she's, and I says, well, it's a political thing. It's all about, unelected bureaucrats, I'm sure, made this, time change thing or whatever. So,
yeah, I don't remember what part of the government started doing it, but they claim it's for farmers. Do you feel like it's good for you?
No, it's a massive lie, because farmers don't care.
No, it doesn't help farmers.
It's for wealthy city people, so they can, get in a round of golf after work. That's what the farmers told me it was for.
Yeah, whatever it's for. I wish they'd stop doing it. It's real annoying.
Yeah,
and I don't care which way they go with it. Just stop changing it.
And it's not just that we're in New Hampshire. When I lived in San Antonio, I remember every winter being talking to my friends, I can't deal with this. It's dark so early. It just is not right. I don't care if it's quote unquote the way it's supposed to be. That's what people always claim. Whenever we have this conversation about getting rid of daylight savings, somebody always comes in to say, yeah, but we don't want to leave it like it is in March. We want to leave it like it is in November. No, it's horrible. I hate waking up.
Kind of seems like the northern climate just sort of dictates that it's going to get dark early sometimes.
Well, yeah, but it's not just northern. It's everywhere in the United States I've been in, at least. But it also is going to get darker earlier. But also, if you just go, oh, now 3 o'clock is 4 o'clock. Wait, opposite. Now 2 o'clock is 3 o'clock. Then your day is just gone, especially for me, because I can't wake up early. I did once this week, and I felt awesome in the morning. Awesome. I was like, wow, this is so much better. I'm going to do this every day. And then I just crashed, and it was awful. It really sucks, because I'm a morning person, literally. But then I started doing Free Talk Live and married Ian, who is eating at midnight every night and stays up until 3. Yeah. And it just wrecked
He's
my
a second
schedule.
shift guy.
Yeah, a lot of people are skating on such thin sleep margins anyway that to deprive them of 1 hour of sleep is almost inhumane.
And I actually do kind of like it getting darker a little earlier now because, like in the summertime, it doesn't get dark till like 8:30. My kids are still wound up for like an hour, an hour and a half after dark. And now that it's getting dark at 5:30, like I'm able to get to bed by like 8:30, sometimes 9:30. Now I like to go to bed early because I'd like to get a good night's sleep and wake up early, but that's hard to do when your kids don't even go to sleep until a good hour after dark.
I don't know if this is New
hours.
Hampshire or it's like all the trees everywhere, but it felt like this summer it was like, oh, it doesn't get dark until 8 p.m. like you said, for a very short amount of time. It felt like that got fast forwarded, and I just know the winter is not going to get fast forwarded. And it's not even like the summer felt fast forwarded either. Like it was fine, and I'm happy that it's fall right now. Like I'm happy with that. I like the change, but the light situation, I kind of noticed. Maybe I didn't pay attention the other 3 summers I've been here. It just felt like, oh, like we're skipping over that. I don't know. Maybe that was just
you
me.
Probably didn't pay attention the other 3 summers you've been here because you had Ian here.
Well, yeah.
With you, so.
One thing I really think is that like eating more gives you enough energy to pay attention to things, because like I didn't eat a lot for like my whole entire life. And like I remember me and Nikki like bragging with each other, like, I eat like a bird, I eat like a mouse. And then like we both had these like changes where we started eating totally different. But I really think that like eating more, like eating enough, has made it to where I just notice more things. Like I never noticed my whole entire life that there are tons of flowers that bloom twice. And I was just like, I feel like I was like living in some kind of like a fog when I didn't eat enough. Like I would stand in the kitchen when the first year I was here while Ian was on the show, thinking like, if I just eat something really fast, he won't even know. And it wasn't his fault either. It was so weird. Like I
didn't want anybody to know you're eating, huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
basically.
okay. Yeah, nourishing the brain really helps, and especially nourishing it with like good fats, for example.
Yeah, butter.
Yeah.
Well, butter. So like one of the things I've made it a point to do, with my kids, is feed them butter, but butter from grass-fed cows. Preferably butter that comes from Ireland, because Ireland doesn't really grow grain. They grow grass year-round. They graze their cows year-round. So that's one thing I really appreciate about the Kerrygold butter.
I never knew
from
why
Ireland.
It's so much better, but it legitimately just tastes so good.
Yeah, and if you look at I've never been to Ireland, but I've studied about it. But if you basically, the climate, the landscape, they're mowing the grass year-round in Ireland. It basically doesn't stop growing because it doesn't really ever freeze over hard, and it doesn't get super, super hot because it's got that Atlantic Ocean just constantly just putting the moisture in the current, and all that.
It's always like
air
overcast.
Over it. Yeah, right. It's perfect grass growing weather, and it's like the most perfect place to raise cows.
It wouldn't
because of that.
It wouldn't make sense to feed your cows anything else.
Right. Yeah, and so the cows are all grazed like they should be, and there's a lot of these small farms still, not like in America where it all got taken over by subsidies. But the important thing about fat and brains is people should understand that your brain is kind of like a wiring harness, and the fat in that brain is like the plastic in the wiring harness that keeps all the wires in the wiring harness insulated from one another. And the fat gets consumed by your brain, and your brain has neurons firing back and forth, and there's electrical pulses going through the brain. And when that fat gets all consumed, the brain starts to quite literally short circuit. So people get like manic depressive and all kinds of issues. And a lot of what's going on, this is one thing I like about RFK coming in, is sounds like he's got an axe to grind with the seed oils and the seed oil industry, which is a simple fix from a government standpoint, as far as I'm concerned. I'll talk about that in a second. But these real fats, during, sometime during the 70s and especially the 80s, these real fats basically in general in the United States of America got replaced by these fake synthetic fats. We'll just call them, or vegetable,
margarine, vegetable oils,
based fats, which are which these canola oil, for example, the whole Eightful Eight group, but canola oil, for example, it's like very highly processed.
Yeah, it's closer molecularly to a plastic than it is to an actual food oil.
And one of the things that it actually does is it lowers IQ. It makes the brain smaller during like the very crucial brain development years. So from like being born till 2 years old, that baby's brain needs a lot of good, wholesome, healthy fat. The best place to get it is from mom's breast milk. Well, if mom is consuming hydrogenated oils of any sorts, it's gonna, anything bad that mom consumes, it gets, basically flushed right out in the breast milk immediately. This is why when there's like radiation leaks in places, one of the first places they go check for radiation is in the cow's milk at any farms, because it'll show up there immediately, because the cows will express any of that stuff right out of their, right into their milk. So then you got, the other thing is we got people doing is feeding babies baby formula.
Yeah, and that is like a large amount soybean oil most of the time. That is the craziest, worst thing to me. I got so angry because I saw this story where people were saying, can you believe that marginalized, oppressed people are more likely to have sugar in their formula? And they were showing that like some charities, etc., were giving like poor people this like off-brand type of formula that was made with sugar, but they're ignoring the fact that like the regular ones, that the more expensive ones they wanted those people to be feeding their kids, were made with high fructose corn syrup and soybean oil, and they were complaining there's sugar in this. Oh my god, so stupid. Like I just hate the hate for sugar ends up with so much dumb stuff going on, like people thinking that they should be consuming soybean oil and because it's better than eating sugar.
So the bad thing in the hydrolyzed oil, I might butcher this, I don't have it right in front of me, but it's like oleonic acid, or I'm not saying
linoleic. I can never say that either, but there's also, it's oleic and linoleic.
I think oleic acid is the correct way to say it.
But I like to just say that it's the polyunsaturated fatty acids, because the butter is saturated fat, and that's what you want. That means its molecules are already like taken up by oxygen before it goes into your body, and then the monounsaturated is a bit better. That's like olive oil is mostly monounsaturated, and then polyunsaturated fatty acids are safflower oil, canola oil, all the vegetable oils, all the bad ones, and that
Crisco,
they're bad.
Shortening, all that.
Yeah, they are bad because they are unstable, because they have more than one or more than two. They have 2 to 6 spots where oxygen can get into them inside the body, and also they start to oxygenate in the bottle, and they're basically they do so many things. Like, I believe anything bad someone tells me they do at this point, like lower IQ, damage.
Oh yeah,
testes.
there's proof on a lower IQ. Mm-hmm. So it actually makes a part of the brain called the amygdala and one other part smaller. And this is something that's been proven now. Wow. Same thing. It also there's a thing with the size of the testicles are smaller. Yeah. It drives down testosterone production in the boys. I got this rat birth control I've been putting out in rat traps, or in rat bait stations, because I don't want to use any poison on my property, and it actually works quite well. But the number one ingredient is cottonseed oil. Wow. And it's
that makes a lot of sense to me, because one thing I was going to also say, like as far as like it hurts testosterone and testes, well, that's because it is basically like estrogen. It's like synthetic estrogen. It like, and anytime you have like you raise estrogen in a man, that's going to lower your testosterone, and anytime you raise estrogen in a woman, it's going to lower her natural progesterone, which is actually good for her. And
so it's birth control for the male and female rats. It works on both ways.
Lowers their testosterone and lowers the female's progesterone.
So anyways, is it oleonic acid?
Oleic? Okay,
oleic acid.
Google it.
So RFK was talking about how it's mandatory that this oleic acid, there be a certain percentage of it, and this is the compound or the chemical or whatever that makes the part of the brain smaller, that reduces testosterone, that also has other bad effects. I can't remember what they all are, but it is required in baby formula, and by the government, or it won't get WIC approval. You can't use it for, you can't essentially, get the government to buy the formula through the WIC program. And then, so you start looking at so the problems with the seed oils is I don't think we have to ban seed oils. I don't think we have to ban high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, I agree.
All we need to do is stop the subsidies to produce it.
That would be awesome if he does that.
All that has to happen.
If that's all he does, that'd be awesome.
They're over-incentivizing that stuff.
Correct.
Corn.
And it wouldn't come on the market naturally the way it is.
So what did we use for cooking oil before we started using
butter, lard,
tallow. Correct.
tallow, mhm.
And the reason,
all saturated fat.
right? So right about the time we started shifting from basically a lot of these animal-based, cooking oils and frying oils, tallow, lard, ghee, things like that, was about the time that there needed to be a new marketplace for these seed oils. Also, I believe there's an agenda to make the population sick, to break up families, to and then these are all just little bits of this war.
There absolutely is. They fluoridate baby water at the store. If you go and look, they sell 1 gallon jugs of water specifically for infants. It's fluoridated.
Yeah, and infants don't even have teeth, and they're not getting them for a while.
Right. So it's not that excuse.
What I'm understanding here from oleic and linoleic is oleic is monounsaturated, so it's not as good as saturated fat. Like, honestly, I avoid eating olive oil very often. Like, I just replace it with coconut oil every single time, because coconut oil is the most highly saturated fat you can find, more highly saturated than animal fat. But that's really okay, because when you're eating animal fat, you're eating enough of the saturated fat that it basically like displaces all the unsaturated, and you're good. It's not like it's a high amount. But then when
not all animal fat is the same. Like, not all cow fat is the same. So if you have you buy beef, for example, at Walmart that was from cows that came off of a 50,000 head feedlot that went through some factory processing plant, that came off some factory calving operation, and it was all the factory farming food chain the whole way, which is the only way it gets to Walmart, essentially in the form of beef. That cow was fed a tremendous amount of grain. Mm-hmm. And not all grains are equal. What it was fed was a ton of corn.
Yeah,
because corn subsidies are insane, and
they feed cows soy also, right?
Yep, corn, soy, cottonseed.
Wow.
Cottonseed's a byproduct of cotton, production.
Wow.
Soy. A lot of the cows are fed sugar beet pulp from when they process the sugar beets. When I worked in Colorado, one of the operations that we did was after corn harvest, we did sugar beet harvest, and all these sugar beets are Roundup ready. They're sprayed with tons of Roundup.
None of that sounds like something a cow would just be like, tasty, over like corn and weeds growing on the ground.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I meant to say grass and weeds growing on the ground.
And so, anyways, corn is really, really the big offender when it comes to cows. Not so much like these smaller grains like barley or buckwheat, or even like oats. But the problem with like oats is most oats are usually sprayed with Roundup right before, 2 weeks before they harvest them to dry them off. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, not most oats. Almost most wheat. Some oats will. It depends on the region. Usually, a lot of the northern oats they don't really do that with, that come out of Canada. But a lot of them that are lower in the states, I guess they'll spray that too, they use a Roundup to as a decontestant to dry down the field before they go through with the combine, because they don't want any weeds that are green that are still alive, or any volunteer wheat that might have grown up because they didn't get in the field for a while. So sometimes the wheat berries fall off the wheat. They replant themselves, or they sprout and then they grow up. So you got this green grass, and it really reduces the ability of the efficiency of the combine, the wheat combine, to spread it out. But the big problem is subsidies. And yeah, the big thing is I don't think we need to ban anything. I think we just need to stop subsidizing this. There's no authority, under the Constitution to subsidize any of these companies. It's going to get painful, but it's going to be beautiful, because this will be beautiful if this happens, if we can get rid of all the farm subsidies and just level the playing board, just level it right across the board, and also stop with all of the ridiculous regulations. Pretty much every farming and agricultural regulation that's been implemented in like the last 50 years, 70 years, it was all designed to put small farmers out of business and keep and only give it to mega corporate farms.
That's right. And anytime they deregulate it only helps the bosses and doesn't help the little guy.
Yep. So we have, seed oils is a big thing. It's making us dumber. Months before we're born, while we're breastfeeding, while we're, in school, all, I don't know if you guys remember the food pyramid, and the biggest part of the food pyramid is all grains that are government subsidized. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking at the book, and it said American Grain Growers Association. It had like a little emblem, like this is brought to you by or produced by or something, the American Grain Growers Association. But and part of the reason that another thing that happened is part of the reason we got away from lard, for example, as a nationwide or like all the fast food joints 50 years ago used lard or tallow.
And tallow. Mm-hmm.
But the kind of pigs that they started producing essentially and breeding and producing are these factory farm pigs, or these pigs that are all white and didn't have a lot of fat on them. Previous to basically the Berkshire landrace type pig that was being, your common pig that's all, pink white, it's being raised on all the corporate farms, doesn't have much fat on their back. And the big pig that was being the pig that was being basically commercially raised in the country, from what I understand, previous to the government subsidizing the hog industry, was the Tamworth pig, is the breed of the pig. And these pigs had like 3 inches of back fat on them. But 50 to 75 years ago, as a hog producer, there was a big market for tallow. And then that with the very inexpensive seed oils coming into the market, and the big hog producers like Tyson and Cargill and JBS raising hogs on concrete floors in 10-acre barns, and there's like 5,000 to 7,000 hogs or whatever per barn, and they don't have any natural light. They're not in natural dirt.
Dead soil.
Like, one thing that's really cool about the soil where I live is red. Just under topsoil is red clay. There's a lot of iron in it, and pigs do really good on it. Same thing up at Bardo Farm. A lot of New Hampshire's, that kind of soil.
Why do they do good on it? Because of their feet?
Because there's iron in the soil, and pigs eat dirt.
Oh.
So basically what we do with our pigs is we turn them out on dirt, and then we go in and turn them out in forest. Or this year I've turned them out on what was garden last year and a little bit of forest. But there's all this red dirt, and as they're eating the roots and eating the grubs, and they're little plows, they just keep on ripping up everything everywhere. They eat a lot of that dirt, and that iron's good for them. So when I was a little kid, I know Stu remembers this. I don't know if you ever seen these ads, Bonnie, but there was a big push for pork, the other white meat.
I've heard that term. I feel like I've heard my dad joke the other white meat.
Yeah, well, it was a big thing on TV. There was a huge push by your pork checkoff. Every time a hog was sold at auction, 1 penny per pound or 2 pennies per pound of that hog would go to this pork checkoff, which is just another bureaucracy to like funnel money into advertising campaigns and buddies and stuff. But it was to promote pork, the other white meat, because when they started raising the hogs in the barns, not on iron, they're giving them a synthetic iron essentially in their feed to make up for it. They were raising anemic pigs, but they were able to get these pigs to like butcher weight in like 6 to 7 months, to where the other pigs, it takes them a year to get them to butcher weight. And even those same pigs would take them almost a year to get them to butcher weight, if they were just raised in the forest or outside. But since they're in these barns and climate control, and they just set them up so they eat, and they eat a lot, and they're eating mostly corn. Corn is like, just puts a bunch of, fat and meat on these pigs.
Yeah, one thing I heard about how they got them fatter so much quicker was that they first started being like, oh, look, we just made something, I don't remember what it was. I think it was something that they were giving to them, a chemical that would just like ruin their thyroid, and then they were getting fat. And then people said, hey, that's illegal because that is cruel. And they were like, oh, we can do the same exact thing with soy. That's literally what soy does. It like destroys people's and pigs' thyroid, so it made the pigs way bigger. And there's like a whole bunch more that goes into it. 603-283-6160. Do you believe RFK is going to save America? More coming up.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, announcements came thick and fast from the US President-elect Donald Trump, with who he plans to fill up his cabinet. Some of those announcements raised eyebrows and led to concern from Republican senators from within his own party. In particular, the pick for Attorney General Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman who has been under investigation for sex trafficking. FSN's Mitch McCann has more.
According to reporting from the New York Times, a number of Republican senators appear skeptical of Matt Gaetz' chances of being confirmed as America's Attorney General. He's got his work really cut out for him, Senator Joni Ernst reportedly chuckled, while Senator Susan Collins said, "I was shocked by the announcement." In recent years, the Florida congressman had been the subject of a sex trafficking investigation, which resulted in no charges being laid. Hours after President-elect Trump announced the nomination, Gaetz resigned from Congress. Mitch McCann, New York.
Another top name, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, was chosen this week by the president-elect to become the US's next Secretary of State. Trump also announced the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. FSN's Iris Spitzer reports.
In a statement, Trump described Rubio as a fearless warrior who will never back down to our adversaries. The 53-year-old Republican, who has been a Florida senator since 2010, has previously advocated for taking a hard line towards countries including China, Iran, and Venezuela. He's generally seen as more of an interventionist than Trump, although some more recent comments, such as advocating trying to wind down the war in Ukraine, indicate that he may be shifting his views to be more aligned with the president-elect. Trump also announced the nomination of former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. If confirmed, she would oversee 18 spy agencies and provide a daily briefing for Trump on intelligence issues.
And the US President-elect Donald Trump returned to the White House this week to meet with outgoing President Joe Biden. The sitting president told his predecessor and successor that he looks forward to a smooth transition. FSN's Benji Hire has more.
The emotion neutral, the tone and mood cordial. At least that's what was on display for cameras before presidents past, present and future conversed behind closed doors for almost 2 hours. Joe Biden offered his congratulations to Donald Trump. Trump responded, quote, "Politics is tough and not a very nice world," adding that the transfer of power will be as smooth as it can get. A stark contrast to 4 years ago when he refused to invite Biden to transition proceedings, falsely claiming in 2020 that the election he lost had been stolen from him.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Not your keys, not your Bitcoin is a lesson that too many people have learned the hard way. It's always best to get your crypto into a wallet that you control, but not all wallets are equal. Many of our hosts have been using Edge Wallet for years to manage crypto, and there just aren't many wallets to compare. Featuring a unique login system that makes it easier for you to access your crypto from multiple devices, Edge is designed to be user-friendly. In a space that can be notoriously difficult for non-tech people, Edge is a valuable tool for novices and experts alike. You can learn more at edge.app, that's edge.app, which features a link at the top for those who wish to learn more about crypto and wallets. Thank you to Edge for sponsoring Free Talk Live, and again, to learn more, visit edge.app. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Stu,
and Jay.
And if you, I should give out the number. If you want to call in, anyone can call in at any time with their thoughts, change the subject, talk about what you want, or tell us what you think about what we were saying. That's 603-283-6160. What was that, Jay?
A little more about Edge.
Edge Wallet?
I've been doing essentially Bitcoin activism, convincing people to buy Bitcoin for years. I've been giving everyone I meet that didn't have a Bitcoin wallet, I'm like, set up a Bitcoin wallet. text message me your Bitcoin QR or your Bitcoin code. This was before I was just like using Telegram and Signal and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I will send you $10 in Bitcoin. And so I can remember recommending like, blockchain.info wallet, was, like the popular one like 10 years ago. And then the Mycelium wallet. And then there's Exodus wallet. And what was happening a lot with these wallets where you had to like really pay attention and make sure you took that time and wrote that seed phrase down.
Yeah, some really bad things happen with the Exodus wallet.
And then I'm just saying a bunch of these wallets where you have to do that. Those are just some, I'm sure there's more. Like people will call me up like, hey, so I got this Bitcoin wallet and I set it up a couple years ago. You gave me some money and I got a little money at this farmer's market and this, that, and the other thing. Now I see that Bitcoin's like, $1,500, but I can't figure out how to get my wallet.
Help.
And, help me. And so the one thing I really like about Edge, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, because it's more like a normal password and username. I love that. And it's so easy to just tell someone to download it on their phone.
Yep.
I've done the same thing, like told people to download it and I would send them their first like $5 in Bitcoin for like just doing that. And I even got like an old lady to do it at some like women's meetup I went to. I brought like, we all had to bring gifts for like a white Santa type thing. And I brought a gold back was part of my gift. And then got everybody talking about that kind of stuff. And this old lady was like, I always wanted to try Bitcoin, but it's too complicated for me. So I got her to download Edge, and I told her how to send me her, receive code. Why can't we think of that word right now? Like
QR code.
Just like, no, even like the long numbers.
Yeah, the receive address.
Yeah, I guess that's all you call it. I don't know why it sounds wrong right now. Like there's something else I usually call it. I don't know.
They also call it a public key, but
yeah,
most people don't call it that. They just call it a receiving address.
Yeah, I don't know why. I feel like there's something else I call it. I don't know, like a code. It's not right. Anyways.
So Edge has sort of fixed all that problem, all those problems. And you still have the ability to go into the Edge wallet, into each and every single wallet you have, and just back it up. And so I have a very good friend that like 5 years ago, her and I did some trading. I paid her in Bitcoin. She put it on the Edge wallet, broke the phone, didn't think anything about it. And, and a year ago, she's like, oh, I need to, access this. And that phone's broke. And so all she did was email Edge. And she had her password. And they said, yup, in 1 week, you'll have...
That happened to me when they stole my phone. When the FBI stole my phone, I had to just wait 1 week for some reason. But I knew my password and everything.
Right. It's a 1 week waiting period, in which I've had to do that too.
I didn't email them though. I don't remember. But
well, anyways, it was she emailed them, and they kind of worked her through it. And another thing too is at Anarchapulco, the Edge guys are down there hanging out.
I met Paul Pue at PorcFest this year.
Yep.
That was like a alliteration, but he was so nice. Like seriously, if I had to just say who's the nicest person I met at PorcFest this year, it would be Paul Pue from Edge Wallet.
Yep. So yeah, that's right. He's at PorcFest too, Anarchapulco. So those guys, they're meetable. In fact, Paul, I just hit him up on Telegram if I want.
He's on Twitter too.
He's accessible. So and that's really makes me feel a lot better too about a wallet, especially one where you it is sort of easy to recover it. So the fact the guys who are into it, and I've seen them places and shook their hands, and they've been around for a while, is definitely.
There's nothing worse than the feeling where, I mean, obviously there are worse things, but it's a horrible feeling when like you convince somebody to accept Bitcoin for payment and they're doing some job for you, and then like a year later they text you like, hey, I forgot how to get into my wallet, can you help me? And you're just like, no, I told you how serious it was, and like I can't help you. No one can help you.
Treat it like it's silver coins, cash, or gold bullion.
I just don't understand people who can't just remember a password and email. Password and username, that's definitely a thing on top of like the more complicatedness of other wallets, but like sometimes people just can't remember a password and their email they used or anything. But it's still easier if you're using Edge to remember that stuff. In fact, it's always like reminding you to remember it. It's reminding you, hey, practice your password now instead of just using your PIN, and then you'll practice it and be like, okay, yeah, it's that.
Yep.
In into the show tonight, I brought a story about this guy, Matt Gaetz. I'm not sure if that's how you say it. Somebody else said it differently to me before, but it's Gaetz. I think that's Gates. So first I wanted to talk about who he is. This from the New York Times. And the reason it's important is because he got nominated by Donald Trump to become Donald Trump's new AG. What's that stand for?
Attorney General.
Yes. And that's like, they have all kinds of power because they're basically like the head prosecutor of the feds.
If you want to know the power the Attorney General has, Kamala Harris does a really nice 40 some odd second explanation where she's like, as Attorney General of California, I have the power with the swipe of my pen to make your life miserable.
Yes.
Even if you don't get convicted, you still get arrested, you get charged, you get looked down upon in your community, you get, and then you have to go to
stand
court.
In line at court. She literally said that.
You have to hire an attorney. Attorney's a lot of money. Yeah.
It's evil. Seriously, I shared that on Twitter when I saw it. She was saying that not just like, oh, it's a big responsibility. She was saying, like, if you cross me, I can F you up, F up your life because of all the power I have. And she was like bragging about that.
I just want to say, if you're one of the henchmen that's following the orders of these types of people, I can't imagine that makes you feel good about yourself.
Right. I feel like a lot of these people are being used. Like a lot of people are just like somebody who doesn't have a lot of confidence and they've gotten into the government and now there are people that are like, you're part of our team. You'll do whatever we say, right? And these low confidence people are like, yeah, I'll do whatever you say. Now I'm part of your team.
That's what it is. They're scared.
So I've been to many court hearings. I have talked with many prosecutors, observed them. And one thing that I noticed about the prosecutors, like the culture of the prosecutors and even like the lawyer types, especially the lawyers that go work in government and bureaucracy, is like the men are just a bunch of soy boys. And generally, I think the women have greater testosterone that are in that industry or in those, positions of,
like a bad
authority
way,
and power. I'm just saying that the women are like tougher than the men. So like a lot of these guys are low confident soy boys that, are going to steal with paper and pen and, use the power and authority of the state. And I believe almost every prosecutor I have encountered, there is actually, there is a couple of guys that I would say that don't fit this, that I have dealt with. But they're all pretty much, power hungry, power drunk, sociopaths. And they are just trying to climb their way up, this ladder to power because that's where it goes. And
even if it's not that, they're just scared to do anything different because they got a paycheck coming in and they're comfortable.
Yep. And another thing with all these prosecutors is, like, another thing I'd really like to see RFK do is stop the Title IV money coming into the states from the federal government for like child protective services.
Yes.
So for example, Jeff Younger, he just look him up on the internet. Jeff Younger, he does have a website, forget what it is, but he's a guy from Texas. He is a lawyer. His son is being transitioned. His toddler, his wife, and his ex-wife,
the heck?
Who's a pediatrician,
took him to California, right?
Yep, took the kid to California. The kid's basically, he did a podcast with Nick Freitas. I'm not sure if he's the guy who's the legislator from Virginia. He's a real good guy. Anyways, and he does a podcast. Nick Freitas on YouTube, and Jeff Younger was talking about how, like, this is a couple weeks ago, he did the podcast, how within a month that his son was going to be chemically castrated by California. I guess the kid's 8 years old. And it's been like a total brainwashing, thing going on. But he exposes how through Title IV, that every time $1 in child support is collected by the state or somebody pays child support, that the state gets 100% matching contributions from the amount of child support that is paid. And 66% of that goes directly to the judicial pension fund. And then there's the other 36% or 34 point whatever percent, 33.3%, whatever it is. They like using 66 and 33, these guys, with their calculations. Goes towards other, it's like 10% goes to DCYF and 10% goes to this administrative whatever. And also when they take kids, I just found it, CPS takes kids that are under 18 months old and able to get them adopted. they get like $125,000 for each adoption. The DCYF, and a lot of this goes to the pension funds of these guys. So what happens is these state guys that are these, career parasites, these essentially, weak, feeble, like they would have zero power without the tyranny of the state backing them up. Well, they're also part of a huge conspiracy to keep all of these government employee, judicial pension funds, the pension funds of the social workers, the pension funds of the health and human services, employees, keep these pension funds fat and plush through this money coming from the Social Security Administration under Title IV. So, that's another thing that has to be, gotten rid of and stopped.
I don't know if this is the same, but last night, Dan O'Neill from the New Jersey Libertarian Party, I know he does a lot of other things. He runs the now called Unlocking Freedom events, asking for support for Ian Freeman, my husband, Ross Ulbricht, Roger Ver, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange. Well, I was talking to him on the phone last night, and he told me he had his kids taken away with a crazy family court story. He was telling me, and there was I would love for him to call in about it sometimes, but it's his story. I'm not going to talk about it. But he told me that the actual Federal Reserve, why do they care about this? It's so obvious to me, but they give states, every state except Kentucky, is part of this, and I'm not sure if it's the same as Title IV, but the Federal Reserve gives money to every judge, judicial pension fund, and anytime a kid gets taken away from its parents, and it goes to whichever parent gets more of the custody, if it's she has him 75% of the time, well, they take that number and do some math with it, and the Federal Reserve prints out some money to give to the judicial fund in that amount.
So the way I understand it is that the Social Security Administration Title 4D and 4E, if you go internet search those, or actually if you go on my webpage, jaynoone.com, that's JAYNOONE.com, there's a couple links you can click on right at the top of the webpage, and you can read about some of the affidavits and things that have been put forth about DCYF, and some of this explains it. But the Title 4E and D programs take money from the Social Security Administration. Well, where does the Social Security Administration get their money from? Basically, the Federal Reserve printing money out of thin air, deficit spending. It's Health and Human Services, I believe, on a federal level is $2 trillion a year. And, they've been just stacking trillions every single year on the debt. So he is pretty much correct when he says that it goes directly from being printed out of thin air to lining the pockets of career, professional, licensed, government-approved child traffickers.
Yeah, seriously, and that's the thing. I'm going to go to the phones in a second, but I really do think that you see a lot about child trafficking in these confusing, nebulous kind of scenarios, where they're trying to make you think just some random gangs are out there, just child trafficking. Very often, I'm sure it happens a bit, but I really think it's because they don't want you thinking about the fact that they are the number one child traffickers. The government is. Giving people, getting money for being a part of taking a child and giving them to someone else other than the parents, that is nothing but child trafficking. But we're going to go to the phones. We have Turd Ferguson in Pennsylvania. Turd, thanks for holding. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, this is the second time that they're talking about the same exact thing with Matt Gaetz. They've already
What
done
is it?
this
What is it?
before.
What are they talking about with him?
These accusations that he sex trafficked people, which I have seen no evidence of. And it's interesting that they only start talking about this whenever it sort of benefits the Democrats' political ambitions and it's. They already tried to charge him with this, by the way, and then they launched a huge congressional investigation over this, and then they found nothing.
I do remember stuff about this. I just didn't go into
it happened
reading it.
years ago. And now they're only bringing it up again because Matt Gaetz is about to get a new position in government that's higher in power. And I'm so sick of these establishmentarians whining and complaining about this stuff every time that they have some new political mission that they want to go on. And, here's another interesting thing. if you want to compare the weird sex lives of members of Congress and the Senate, there are plenty of people in Congress and the Senate that have way weirder and more disgusting sex lives than Matt Gaetz, and yet it's him that they go after. And I think it's because that Matt Gaetz is the most anti-establishmentarian out of all of them. I think it's because he's the most anti-war. He's against the drug war. He's against the deep state, and he's the most civil libertarian out of all of them. And they go after him and not each other, and they all have way weirder sex lives than he does. You know,
like who? I don't know about any of their sex lives.
Well, like all of them. Like, I mean,
I'm sure. Like, it wouldn't shock me.
There was the one cam girl that came out like a month ago that said that she found herself talking to one of the senators, one of the younger senators, which I have my own ideas of who that might have been, and it's not Matt Gaetz. And she didn't even know until she like figured it out after camming with this guy for like months.
The only young one I can think of at all is like AOC. But
well, no, she's
Congress. I think
she's a congresswoman. But we're talking about the senators, like the even more powerful people. Personally, I think it's probably Josh Hawley, but that's just my guess.
I don't know who that is.
But Matt Gaetz is probably the most innocent out of all the people in Congress, and they're only going after him because he's a civil libertarian.
And he also doesn't take AIPAC money.
That seems important.
Him and Thomas Massie, I think, are the only ones that don't have an AIPAC guy.
Wow. I really hope that Trump puts Thomas Massie in some kind of position. I would totally accept that as his promise to put a libertarian. Like, I don't care if he runs as a Republican. Thomas Massie would be a great libertarian position in anything.
I really like Thomas Massie, too. Yeah, he's another one of the least bad ones. Him and Rand Paul.
I would totally believe...
surprised.
But I would totally believe that him not taking AIPAC money affects things, because even the Republicans, that we were going to get into it tonight, even the Republicans who have to like confirm him for Trump are like saying like, we doubt he's going to get through, because even he's insulted some of the Republicans before. It seems like the Republicans and the Democrats don't like him, and what did they all have in common? Getting money from Israel. That's what AIPAC is. I don't remember what it stands for right now.
There's a lot of establishment Republicans who are pro-war. You know, you got Mitch McConnell, who is just a hardcore neocon war hawk. And
actually, Mitch McConnell is finally out of the Senate, thank God, because he was resigning at the end of his term, and he was just replaced now. So that's actually a good
news.
Thing. But yeah, but
okay.
you are right that a lot of these. And look, I'm actually, I mean, if you want to be real about it, I'm more on the side of Israel than I am the Palestinians. Although I do think that the Israeli government's been particularly brutal in their attack against Palestine in the aftermath of that. But I'm still more on Israel's side.
Yeah, they invaded fair and
I don't think that we
square.
should be giving them any money, though. I mean, they have their own central bank there. They can print out their own money. So I don't know why they need to take advantage.
I don't understand. They're really rich. I don't understand why they need so much money from the United States.
That's what makes them really rich.
But they're already really rich too. Like they have a lot of money over there. Like they're definitely the richest in the Middle East. I've heard that a lot. And there's Iran. Iran is like super rich.
It's just another outpost of the nebulous empire that exists. America happens to be their, their whipping boys. We're the administrators.
I don't know why we have to devalue our currency, because they have their own currency that they can devalue.
It's also all about
that
power.
currency's not ours.
I feel like power is a really big thing too. Like sometimes I'm like, follow the money. Like, oh, if you follow the money, well, a lot of times the money doesn't matter to these freaking psychopaths. It's way more about power, and just like being, hey, look, we helped you out and now you'll help us out, is like sometimes more important than like even like making money.
And dollar devaluation is a global agenda. It's not any one country trying to do that. They're all trying to do that.
Yeah, the pace is 2% per year, which is actually pretty ridiculous, because if you're going to, 20 years, that's 40% interest. I mean, I'm sorry, 40% inflation. If you go, you start stacking it up, and it's actually, and that's been about right. I mean, just go look at the price of anything versus the price of silver, houses, cars, bread, go back through the years.
They had to do that. Otherwise, the price of goods would go down. We wouldn't have to work as hard. We might have time to sit down and think about how we're being completely enslaved.
Right.
I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, I actually agree with the monetarists, not the Austrians, that we should just have stable prices and not deflation, although I would prefer deflation to inflation. But I will say this, anybody that thinks that a country devaluing the currency 2% a year thinks that's stable. I mean, that's 50% devaluation in 25 years. If you think that's stable prices, you're an idiot. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
But the Federal Reserve only exists for two reasons. It exists to stabilize prices and to minimize unemployment. And both of those things it has completely undermined since its inception in 1913.
It exists to steal from the common man. That's its purpose. It only has one.
It exists to enrich the elites at the expense of the rest of us. But no matter what way you look at, and people think the job of the Federal Reserve is to prevent a recession. The Federal Reserve was never tasked with that. So they're already undermining the two things that they have been tasked to do, which they've already failed to do already. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So I appreciate you guys taking my call.
Well, thanks for bringing up Matt Gaetz. Interesting stuff there. I do remember them trying to say stuff about him, like, oh, he might have slept with somebody that was young, all that stuff.
Yeah, they tried to blackmail him for $25 million years ago.
And there's always stuff like that. And
it was all exposed as a blackmail. It came out as a blackmail. And they're just, basically drumming it up. But, whoever the mainstream media tries to demonize, as far as I'm concerned, those are the other good people. Whoever they're going to talk bad about is good people. I mean, look at they've done puff pieces on the most evil predators. All the puff pieces that they did. Essentially promoting Jeffrey Epstein as this great philanthropist.
One thing that irritates me is I don't think anyone who's popular in any kind of sector, for the most one I'm most interested in is pop music. I don't think anyone that's popular is organically popular. It's all about did they get good articles written about them? And were they pushed by the media?
Yeah, I think you might be.
And that's how they control them. I believe that's the only reason Taylor Swift is, where she is because of all that. And she's obviously controlled opposition.
I agree.
I mean, just controlled in general, not even opposition.
I completely agree with that with her. It was so heartwarming to me that so many white women came out to vote for Trump after Taylor Swift said to vote for Kamala. And I'm not saying because Trump is, oh my God, so great. Just, it means Taylor Swift doesn't have that much power. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up. Don't go anywhere. That's 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, announcements came thick and fast from the US President-elect Donald Trump with who he plans to fill up his cabinet. Some of those announcements raised eyebrows and led to concern from Republican senators from within his own party. In particular, the pick for Attorney General Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman who has been under investigation for sex trafficking. FSN's Mitch McCann has more.
According to reporting from the New York Times, a number of Republican senators appear skeptical of Matt Gaetz' chances of being confirmed as America's Attorney General. He's got his work really cut out for him, Senator Joni Ernst reportedly chuckled, while Senator Susan Collins said, "I was shocked by the announcement." In recent years, the Florida congressman had been the subject of a sex trafficking investigation, which resulted in no charges being laid. Hours after President-elect Trump announced the nomination, Gaetz resigned from Congress. Mitch McCann, New York.
Another top name, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, was chosen this week by the president-elect to become the US's next Secretary of State. Trump also announced the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. FSN's Iris Spitzer reports.
In a statement, Trump described Rubio as a fearless warrior who will never back down to our adversaries. The 53-year-old Republican, who has been a Florida senator since 2010, has previously advocated for taking a hard line towards countries including China, Iran, and Venezuela. He's generally seen as more of an interventionist than Trump, although some more recent comments, such as advocating trying to wind down the war in Ukraine, indicate that he may be shifting his views to be more aligned with the president-elect. Trump also announced the nomination of former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. If confirmed, she would oversee 18 spy agencies and provide a daily briefing for Trump on intelligence issues.
This week, it was confirmed that the Republican Party has held on to the US House of Representatives. The party also flipped the Senate, and this week confirmed Senator John Thune to be the next majority leader of the Senate. And the US President-elect Donald Trump returned to the White House this week to meet with outgoing President Joe Biden. The sitting president told his predecessor and successor that he looks forward to a smooth transition after the former president retook the Oval Office in last week's election. FSN's Benji Hire has more.
The emotion neutral, the tone and mood cordial. At least, that's what was on display for cameras before presidents past, present and future conversed behind closed doors for almost 2 hours. Joe Biden offered his congratulations to Donald Trump, welcoming back to the White House someone he's previously said is a danger to democracy. Trump responded, quote, "Politics is tough and not a very nice world, but I appreciate it very much," adding that the transfer of power will be as smooth as it can get. A stark contrast to 4 years ago when he refused to invite Biden to transition proceedings, falsely claiming in 2020 that the election he lost had been stolen from him.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at Elon Musk's role in the planned government of President-elect Donald Trump. Together with businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, the Tesla and SpaceX owner has been appointed to something called the Department of Government Efficiency, which is a government agency that doesn't even exist yet and can only be created at cabinet level by an act of Congress. Karoom Basra is the Deputy Director of Unchecked UK, which campaigns for business regulation.
I think what we are concerned about, and what I'm particularly concerned about, is a conflict of interest arising where Musk is able to sort of set the rules for himself in the game that he's playing. So we know that the companies that Musk runs, Tesla, SpaceX, and X itself, have been subject to multiple violations kind of when it comes to workplace safety, pay, environmental protections. And we now have the chief executive of those companies set to be in charge of protecting Americans. I think it's a real issue.
It is, however, very unclear what resources and powers Mr. Musk will have to shrink the size of government in the United States. But there's no doubt that after contributing $119 million of his own money to a political action committee supporting Donald Trump's campaign, he is enjoying an outsized influence around the transition table at Mar-a-Lago. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And that's the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
5-Hour Energy CEO Manoj Bhargava claimed this week that the 13 deaths associated with his product were just collateral damage in his company's ongoing war against that 230 feeling. Quote, "We honor the sacrifice of all those who have fallen. I wish we could live in a world where you could get a spike of energy and no crash and not die. But that's not the world we live in." Passionate supporters have flooded social media, demonstrating the terrifying costs of midday drowsiness and fatigue, with consumers saying that when it comes to extra alertness in the mid-afternoon, they are willing to pay any price.
As the wife of a 5-hour energy drinker, we've had to sacrifice a lot in the name of long-lasting bursts of energy that carry you out of the workday and into the evening. We knew the risks going in.
Bhargava says his company has no plans to stop until the 230 feeling is completely wiped off the map, at which point they will turn their attention to that 330 feeling, 430 feeling, and people with a case of the Mondays.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number to call. That's 603-283-6160. We do have some calls on the line, but Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project with a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Stu, and Jay.
And let's just go to the phones. We have Jet from somewhere in the West, right?
Somewhere. I haven't been listening. I apologize, but I wanted to bring up some lessons. We're getting near the holiday seasons, variety of different celebrations going on, and I wanted to kind of reinforce people's responses if they ever get pulled over, stopped by police under any circumstances. Of course, the main thing is we never want to answer their questions, right?
Yeah.
So to avoid any casual conversations where they start kind of slipping questions, any lawyer will tell you the STFU, but if you feel like talking, some people have recommended that you simply say, "I don't answer questions," or "I don't care to chat." But I personally prefer to use my own or develop my own questions. I think it's kind of more fun.
It is a lot of fun.
That's usually how I go about it too.
The last time I got pulled over, I got kind of like bamboozled into answering questions. I think it was just like high cortisol because I had my little brother in the car, and like one thing he asked was like, "Is this your son or your brother?" Isn't that weird? When I thought about it later, I was like, was he like trying to hit on me and he wants to make sure I'm not a single mom? I don't know. I don't know. Oh, and I answered, and I was like, why did I answer that? Annoying.
Well, I have a few examples for you. Whenever I get stopped, for example, I always start the conversation like, "How may I help you?" That kind of gets me in the questioning mood because
that kind of puts you in a position of like
being subservient to him, submitting to him.
No,
How may I help you?
I see that, but I was thinking like that it puts you in a position of like you're not like just someone who is like trashy or something. It's almost like you're talking to them. Like one thing about Ian that's amazing is like his ability to always be, what's the word, like
cordial,
even if he's talking to someone that's like a pleasant,
kind,
and just like not seem like professional. That's what it is. Like if you say to them, how can I help you? It's just like really like, I'm a professional. You can't just walk all over me. And that's like one of the best things I've learned from Ian is just like not being like talking to me, like certain way you talk makes people treat you better.
Well, obviously they stopped you because they needed your help, right? So anyway, of course, then the next, to help set yourself up into this question mode, the next question we'd say, hey, what's your name? You know, that kind of thing. You don't have to go, what's your name and badge number? But,
yeah.
You know, what's your name? You know, you don't have to give your name, but, you know, you probably end up doing that anyway with the exchange of licenses and all that. But then if they start asking you questions, here's a question you might ask just to shut the whole thing down is, can anything I say be held against me? Anyway, that's I have a whole series of things. You know, they ask you things like where you're coming from, where you're going. And I'm thinking rather than, you know, a good answer would not be like into where you're coming from. A good answer would not be, well, I had a few at Joe's Bar and Grill. It's a great place. Better, what I like to do is defer those questions like, why do you ask? And it kind of throws them off. Well, we're just trying to see if you're drunk or something. I don't know. And where you going? I say, well, is that important? And it's something that's not going to infuriate them, but it's going to confuse them. Is what I'm trying to get at here.
That sounds pretty right in the like that you could definitely be in a way that's like too combative and like piss them off, and I'm always scared of that. So like last time I got pulled over, I basically said, I'm filming just so you know, and he was like, all right, I'm also filming just so, and I was like, I know, yep, you know, like he's like, I'm also filming just so you know, and I'm like, whatever, you know. And then he tells me like, oh, you're going 75 and a 55. Did you know that? And I'm just like, oh, no. But and so it's like, I'm not going to admit that I did anything wrong, but yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Should I have not said no?
The way I respond to that is, in other words, that seems a little fast. In other words, you're not admitting to anything. You're kind of making a statement. You're not asking a question. Yes, you know, like I suggest, but it's like, well, that seems a little fast. It's kind of like another example I have further down. It says, did you hit that dog? And I'm thinking a good answer would not be, you mean the Chihuahua, the black Chihuahua with the sparkly collar and no leash?
If I hit a black Chihuahua with a sparkly collar, I'd be jumping off a bridge anyway. There would be no cop talking to me.
Oh, well, anyway, what I'm saying is I just like to kind of, rather than give them information, you always want to divert.
Yeah.
One cop asked me, do you have any weapons in the car? And so I asked him, have you been in the military? He goes, yeah. I said, well, how do you define a weapon? Because for us, anything essentially becomes a weapon. You know what I'm saying?
I would be afraid to get this conversational with them. Like, really? Like, I just try not to talk at all. Like, after he went in, like, ran my license or whatever, came back and told me he was just warning me. I didn't say, like, thank you, even though you can tell that they want you to thank them for just giving you a warning. Yeah, like, he's like, so even though you were going 20 over, I'm just going to give you a warning, okay? And I'm just like, okay.
They're always looking for your consent. Always looking for your consent.
So I just say something like, all right. And then he started giving me advice on how to drive. Like that's when he was like, so are you with your little brother or your son? Like that was so weird. And then also, like what was the other thing? Oh yeah, he was like, I see you have your phone up. I have a phone. Like, this is like a good thing, a good driver thing. My phone is connected to a little thing that holds it up and faces it towards me next to my steering wheel, so it's not like in my lap if I have to use it for something. And it had directions up, but I also love it because it's right in the perfect place for recording. I just kind of face it a little more towards outside the window, and I can see him and me at the same time. But anyways, then right before he let me go, he was like, I noticed you have your phone in one of those things. You shouldn't be playing on your phone don't be using your phone while you're driving, okay? And I just said, like, I don't do that, basically, but not in a confrontational way. And that was like, I feel like he went away fast because he didn't get a lot out of the conversation with me. So yeah, but it's not that's like, kind of victim blaming language on my part, because sometimes they just want to mess with you and they just won't leave you alone.
I have cameras on both front windows, and I have the dash cam and all that. The cop asked me, "So why do you have all these cameras?" I said, "Well, I'm probably watching too much YouTube, that kind of thing." But a lot of people want to simply say, "I don't answer questions," and to me that sounds a little harsh. I think it could be a little bit more like, I'd prefer not to get into a conversation, or I have no comment, or
yeah, that's a
like
really
that.
good one, Jet. I prefer not to get into a conversation right now. Maybe even sound a little sad, like you're just not in the mood for talking. And then it's not like, I don't talk to your kind. And I'm not saying this in a way like, we need to be more kind to cops. Like, not at all. I'm just saying how to keep yourself from being harmed by them.
But for those people that do, want to say, "I don't answer questions," the police will always follow up with, "Why is that?" And you go, "That's a question."
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, just wanted to pass along some of those happy holidays things in case someone gets. Well, it also works if it gets stopped on the street. It doesn't always have to be in the car. I mean, just say, "Nah, I got other things to do. Got to run."
Nice.
But, so happy holidays.
Thank you so much. Yeah, in the holidays, it seems like people get pulled over a lot more. Like, they're out there making sure people aren't drunk driving. Well, that's their excuse there.
Well, there's federal money, legislative money from the states given to specific law enforcement. Massachusetts, they call them law enforcement councils, which are these nonprofits that aren't part of the government, that don't have to respond to right to know requests, for example. And so in Massachusetts, and a couple of my pretty good friends, are cops in Massachusetts, and they tell me about this stuff. In Massachusetts, the legislature will basically give, a chunk of money to, the Springfield Police Department to conduct roadside checkpoints. And then there's like a goal. They want you to pull over X amount of cars, and they kind of expect you to come up with X amount of drunk drivers, or, right.
Quotas.
Definitely quotas. And so the federal government does the same thing. The feds give, money to these, states, and then the states allocate it to the local city or whatever department, sheriffs, whoever, some law enforcement council to carry out these checkpoints, essentially, or to have a what they call a high enforcement rate. They're going to do it, and like DOT does it. They'll do these DOT blitzes, and in like the spring, they'll do like a whole week where just this entire corridor of like whatever, of like 91, 89, and 87, and 95. These are the interstates in the Northeast. They're just bunch of scales will be open on all those roads, and they'll have a team, DOT inspecting trucks and just harassing truck drivers. And actually, when they do those blitzes, a whole bunch of trucking, and they advertise when they're going to do them because it's like public thing. So a whole bunch of trucking companies just give all their guys a week off of work.
Nice.
Just to avoid all that aggravation.
Productivity for the country.
Well, I mean, when, the guys want work off anyways, and
I
they
just
keep
mean
them busy. Yeah.
It's forced, or like incentivized improperly by the cops. Right,
because it's just
getting people to stop working.
Even if you're 100% legit, just the fact that you're going to spend an hour on a side of the road, quite likely getting inspected, and they're just And the cops are pretty annoyed if they can't find something wrong because, they basically have one of my friends who was a DOT cop actually in Connecticut years ago, he said that they would get to a certain dollar amount of tickets that they wrote and they could leave for the day. So that's why they were, always there before like noontime, but they would be gone, at like 1:00 if they were able to write up a whole bunch of tickets and they could all go home.
Wow. So gross. What a job. How productive would you feel if that's what you did for your community every day?
Yeah,
well, if
way to protect and serve, huh?
If you got, if your mother, was consuming, the seed oils while she was pregnant and while she was breastfeeding, or and you were on fluoride your entire life, and you were then eating and consuming either baby formula that's got the seed oils in it or all the government subsidized junk food, going to public school,
plenty of aluminum, and
getting picked on because you're kind of weak and getting stuffed in the lockers. Those are the guys that become aggressive cops, because they're just, that. Oh yeah. I went to high school with a guy who was exactly that.
It's the hall monitor syndrome.
Oh, wow. There wasn't really hall monitors in any of my schools, but I can't imagine a more cringe type of personality than a kid who is like, yeah, I'll help the teachers basically pull people over in the hallway.
Yeah, wow. That's what it was.
That's horrible.
And it's been all through history. I mean, it's
it's a type of person, yeah.
I refer to these guys as the house slaves.
Yeah,
it's the driver, yeah.
Exactly. Even though I didn't have any hall monitors in any of my classes, like I automatically know what type of personality that is. It's like it's an archetype we all have encountered at some point. Well, we have another caller on the line. Sarah in New Mexico, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind, Sarah?
Oh, yeah, I just found out they're going to do another road diet in my own neighborhood.
What is a road diet?
Yeah, you know what? I was like, what is a road diet? So it's like, those 4 car lanes with no solid land medians? They're going to turn that into like a 2-car lane with a bicycle lane and medians and hawk lights.
They've been doing that everywhere, screwing things up.
Wow, that's awful. That's horrible. I hate bike riders so much. I'm sorry.
Well, they're going to have a whole lane.
I know, it's horrible.
And but I used to live there.
Encouraging them.
The thing is that I kind of like it because I still go shopping. I go shopping. There's the Asian store and there's the restaurant there, and it's almost like a nightmare trying to cross the street. I used to live there like 10 years ago, and all you have was that solid yellow line and the broken line, and then cars could pull in at any which way and just run you over. There's nothing solid.
One thing I honestly don't understand why roads were built this way is like any road that's like 60 miles an hour or more, and it's like even like 2 lanes on each side and no median in between is a bit dangerous. That's how when I was 17 and I got in a car accident, I wasn't driving. 3 people died in this car accident, all because the person driving the car I was in went to go change lanes right as it started raining, lost control of the car, was sideways in the oncoming traffic. The oncoming car hit us, T-boned us, killed the person in the passenger seat in my car and both people in the car that hit us. There just needed to be a median there. Like if there was median there, he would have like went out of control, hit the median. It probably would have like, oh my God, we all got whiplash, and then that'd be the end of it. And they did put a median there because of my car accident. I don't understand like why. Like I think it sucks. So like the street's gonna be turned into like way slower of a street now because they're getting rid of a whole lane and giving it to bikers, and that's going to be closed down for a second. But I honestly do understand the median thing. If it's like 60 miles an hour or more, 40 is like, come on, you can slow down and take your turn in,
Pretty expensive to put a median in the middle of a road. A lot of roads are already constructed. I drove on
the cops are spending money on a bunch of crap and stuff like that. Or the government.
I get it. But the thing is we do have, I mean, there was a wreck today driving in. I saw a helicopter. I'm pretty sure it was Life Flight.
I got Life Flighted away from that.
And I didn't see where it landed. I just saw it up in the air. And we were stopped for like 20 minutes. You know, the road, I guess it was backed up for a while before I got there.
On 101.
And somebody had hit a moose.
On 101?
On Route 9.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen moose on Route 9.
So, and that's what I'd heard. But anyways, there is just so much like distracted driving going on. I am I am pretty I'm kind of scared at how often. So I drive a pickup truck that sits up a little high, and quite literally my kids are in the back seat. They're like, that guy's driving his car and he's on his phone, you know, because and I look over and the guy is on the phone, and my 3-year-old's like, you know, tell me about it. He's in the back seat looking, you know, seeing us out the window.
Weren't we on a show together recently where we were talking about how like distracted driving is just as like probably worse than drunk driving, it feels like?
I think so, yeah.
It's the only time I ever got in a car accident where I was behind the wheel. I hit a pole. I didn't hit anyone else. And I feel like I looked at my phone for seriously like 3 seconds before I was like, what's happening? I am stopped. I am wrapped around a pole. What the heck just happened? It was like seriously no more than 5 seconds is the most I will give it. And all I was doing was like I went to like my apps. I clicked Postmates. I was going to click turn on, and all of a sudden my car was stopped. It was crazy. Like
you were driving?
Yeah, it's crazy how easily being distracted for like no time can get you in a car accident. And the reason for mine was like it was like a road that was like a curve, so I was taking the curve. But when I looked at my phone, I underestimated the amount I should turn my wheel to take that curve. I was still like turning it, but barely. I went off the road and hit that pole. It was such a stupid, pointless pole too. It said like this. You are now in blah, blah, blah county. It's like, why do we need to know that? Like some crap like that.
Yeah, your eyes, brains, and steering muscles are updating and correcting like 3 times a second. And so if you look away for 1 second, you might have missed 3 corrections.
Oh, my God.
And,
I don't know. You know, all I can say is that, you know, we have like all this auto fatalities that are just drug driving, drunk driving, distracted driving, people just doing all speeding, everything, and so many people getting killed. But, you know, there's not a big uproar. Everybody's like, oh, well, but that's because of our brains, our minds, our fears are based on what our ancestors felt, and they pass that on into the DNA. So we only had the cars for the last, like, 100 years, 80 years. It's not in anybody's memory that cars are like fearful. People don't have fears.
So it's a lack of ancestral memory of getting into car crashes that's making people crash their cars. Interesting theory.
That's an interesting theory. I don't know what to say.
Well, that is interesting because I heard, I don't know where I heard this, but it was a while ago where a guy was, they were basically asking women, are you more concerned about dying in a car wreck or getting raped? And they're like, oh, I'm way more I'm way more concerned about getting raped. But the statistics show like getting raped versus getting in a car wreck is like way more likely to happen than getting,
way more likely.
Yeah, way more. But
maybe this is
depending on where you live, maybe, or whatever. But
maybe what Sarah's saying is like kind of related to it. Because sometimes I think to myself while I'm driving, it's like, I'm driving, and I seriously don't just like play on my phone. Like if somebody's trying to text me, sometimes I will like click on it, do like voice to text and say like driving. Or if it's like incredibly important, I'll do it like carefully, like one letter, keep looking at the road, one letter, keep looking at the road. But I don't like to use my phone while I'm driving. But what was I saying about it? Oh yeah, sometimes like I'm driving and it's been like one of those days where it's like you've been driving for like 10 minutes and you're like, well, I forgot I was driving this whole time because I was like in a daze. And then I start to think like it's so much more serious to be behind the wheel than I feel like it is 99% of the time while I'm driving. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's some kind of a disconnect there where you just don't remember all the time how serious it is that you're driving this like 2-ton
yeah, more vehicle? Like 3
3-ton vehicle. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's free. Talk live. Call in about whatever you want. More coming up.
Cash Crunch? There's an app for that. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. You can earn cash back using the Upside app for gas, groceries, and at participating restaurants. Open a free account and then claim offer at participating businesses. You can redeem points for gift cards or deposit to your bank account. And who pays for this? The merchants who want you to be a regular. Read more at upside.com. You might already check gasbuddy.com for best price at the pump in your zip code, and their free forever gas card can save as much as 25 cents a gallon. And here's a tip. If you're unfamiliar with an app, hit bbb.org, the Better Business Bureau, and Google user reviews. Be careful which apps you let onto your phone. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks on the blog at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, announcements came thick and fast from the US President-elect Donald Trump with who he plans to fill up his cabinet. Some of those announcements raised eyebrows and led to concern from Republican senators from within his own party. In particular, the pick for Attorney General Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman who has been under investigation for sex trafficking. FSN's Mitch McCann has more.
According to reporting from the New York Times, a number of Republican senators appear skeptical of Matt Gaetz' chances of being confirmed as America's Attorney General. He's got his work really cut out for him, Senator Joni Ernst reportedly chuckled, while Senator Susan Collins said, "I was shocked by the announcement." In recent years, the Florida congressman had been the subject of a sex trafficking investigation, which resulted in no charges being laid. Hours after President-elect Trump announced the nomination, Gaetz resigned from Congress. Mitch McCann, New York.
Another top name, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, was chosen this week by the president-elect to become the U.S.'s next Secretary of State. Trump also announced the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. FSN's Iris Spitzer reports.
In a statement, Trump described Rubio as a fearless warrior who will never back down to our adversaries. The 53-year-old Republican, who has been a Florida senator since 2010, has previously advocated for taking a hard line towards countries including China, Iran, and Venezuela. He's generally seen as more of an interventionist than Trump, although some more recent comments, such as advocating trying to wind down the war in Ukraine, indicate that he may be shifting his views to be more aligned with the president-elect. Trump also announced the nomination of former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. If confirmed, she would oversee 18 spy agencies and provide a daily briefing for Trump on intelligence issues.
And the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump returned to the White House this week to meet with outgoing President Joe Biden. The sitting president told his predecessor and successor that he looks forward to a smooth transition. FSN's Benji Hire has more.
The emotion, neutral. The tone and mood, cordial. At least, that's what was on display for cameras before presidents past, present and future conversed behind closed doors for almost 2 hours. Joe Biden offered his congratulations to Donald Trump. Trump responded, quote, "Politics is tough and not a very nice world," adding that the transfer of power will be as smooth as it can get. A stark contrast to 4 years ago when he refused to invite Biden to transition proceedings, falsely claiming in 2020 that the election he lost had been stolen from him.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And I'd like to thank Save a Horse for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Save a Horse went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Save a Horse and everyone else who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. And we really appreciate all of our amplifiers here, so thank you so much. And also, Jay, on the show, you wanted to tell us something that's coming up in your world. Go ahead with that.
So I assume that amplifier is Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy.
Yeah,
that's where that comes from, I think.
Yeah, I think that's where he got the name idea, probably. He just goes by Save a Horse, apparently.
So anyways, I will be presenting at Anarchapulco 2025, coming up this February 16th through 21st. And it's Anarchapulco Ascendance. Are you ready to embark on a journey to freedom? Join me for Anarchapulco Ascendance from February 17th to 21st, 2025. Explore decentralized living, connect with experts, and prepare for a future of possibilities. Secure your own spot now. If you go to anarchapulco.com/tickets and you use coupon code J, you'll get a 10% discount. This year, I sent a nice forge down to Mexico, and I got a little better anvil than I had last year on its way down there. So I'm going to be setting up my blacksmithing setup there. I'm also going to be doing a presentation on Tuesday on the and the topic of the day is sovereign skills, or the theme of the day. And I also may do a workshop on why your bug out truck should be diesel. And diesels can be EMP proof, and you can also run them on oils that you can scavenge from other broken down vehicles during the apocalypse. So I'm going to potentially do a workshop on that. I haven't quite ironed that out yet. But
why is diesel better than regular oil in case like stuff goes down? Like what?
You mean
what kind
gasoline
of oil?
car? Diesel's better than a gasoline car?
Why? Like what kind of stuff can you make diesel out of?
So a diesel engine will burn any liquid that burns. That's flammable.
Well,
but the liquid needs to have lubricity to it.
So not like alcohol, because it's not.
You can actually, is alcohol injection. It's sprayed through the air intake on a diesel that can be set up also. You can actually run diesels on diesel fuel combined with propane, natural gas, and alcohol, or alcohol. And actually, they use water methanol injection in high performance diesel engines to keep them from overheating. When they take these Dodge pickup trucks and they make them, they come from the factory 190 horsepower and they soup them up to 3,000 horsepower. They put spray water and alcohol or just straight water actually into the intake, but alcohol will help too. It's called water meth injection or alcohol methanol injection. People can read about that. But the best thing about a diesel is you can run a diesel on, first off, mechanical injection diesels are quite literally EMP proof, electronic magnetic pulse proof. All of the modern diesel engines from, say, early 2000s or right about 2000 in the late 90s, most of them have some kind of computers or chips. They are actually much more EMP proof than newer ones. And anything that's made after like 2010, 2012 is so reliant on computer technology and has so many, the computers have so many like inputs and things that they censor. And if any of those things go wrong, it'll either not run or it'll go into limp mode. The older diesel engines, like the Dodge Cummins pickup truck from like 1994 to 1998 is the best one. That one with a manual transmission is a true EMP proof truck. If you had no batteries, no electricity, you're 10 years into the apocalypse, you're still going to be able to park that truck on a hill and pop start it, or get a couple of guys to help you push it and pop start it with the manual transmission, for example. And diesel engines can be ran on used motor oil. They can be ran on hydraulic fluid that a Cat 235 excavator that's sitting at the construction site is going to have 100 and some odd gallons of diesel fuel in it that might still be there. Maybe
fryer oil.
Maybe somebody already got the diesel fuel, and now you got, those things got 120, 130 gallons of hydraulic oil in them. Every dump truck, that semi truck, 10-wheeler, triaxle dump truck, 18-wheeler, and dump trailer, those things are going to have anywhere between 45 to 75 gallons of hydraulic fluid. They're going to have 10, 12 gallons of motor oil in the engine crankcases, for example, bulldozers, things like that. These things will be scattered around, and you'll be able to run your diesel engine on it. But there's a little work to it. I'm not going to give too much of that away right now. I'm going to do a workshop on that. I also probably will do some kind of video presentation on that maybe at some point too. But it's it's a thing. I definitely, and the other thing too is gasoline. If there was like a real scenario, like let's say everything's really shut down, gasoline 6 months, 8 months old isn't that good. In fact, a lot of vehicles are going to have problems running on it. I've
even heard like if you keep filling up your tank when you only get like halfway empty, that's bad, and you should let it like run almost out. Is that true? I heard that a long time ago.
Well, I mean, it's bad to leave your tank like half empty all the time, especially in areas where it's humid, or especially where you have like the weather we have now, where it's a little below freezing at night and it's above freezing during the day. Any moisture that's in that tank will any humidity in the air that is in the void, the empty part of the gas tank is going to have some moisture that will condense and go into your water, and then it'll be water essentially going into your gasoline.
Dang, so if that's worse than old fuel, you'd want to keep it full more often?
Right. But if you're not, running your fuel out much of your, if you're putting on such little miles or driving such little miles that you're not really emptying your tank ever, you can put like dry gas or gasoline antifreeze, which is some things that people should be sort of doing automatic when this time of year, everybody should run a thing of gasoline antifreeze through their gas tank on their gas vehicle just to sort of avoid that. Now, if your evap system and everything is good on your modern car, they usually don't get much moisture in it. But so I got a go-kart for the kids, and I have a forklift from the 1950s that runs on gasoline. The go-kart's gasoline. I have a little four-wheeler.
Is the forklift the thing that we put something into the back of the truck with, the wood?
Yep.
That was fun.
Yep. And yeah, we were. I was thinking I was moving some round bales or something that day.
Some big baskets of a bunch of wood.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Your brother's,
we were loading firewood.
I helped. Yep. I put the handles on.
Yep. Yeah, we did a lot of firewood this year, and I've been putting it into these 1,000 kilogram super sacks, which is like it's like 42 inches by 42 inches by like 6 foot tall, and it's about 1,000 pounds of hardwood. Fits in those bags. So, but anyways, yeah, the forklift doesn't have a sealed gas tank. It's from the 50s. The kids four-wheeler I got and the go-kart don't have a sealed tank. And so the problem is the gas you go buy from the pump has up to 10% ethanol in it. And ethanol is alcohol from corn, it's actually ethanol is an awesome fuel when it's ethanol by itself. But the problem with ethanol in our gasoline is that it attracts so much moisture. So like my forklift, for example, about once a month, and I use the forklift almost every day, but about once a month, I actually put a petcock on the bottom of my carburetor so I can just crack it and I can drain it into a cup. But when it starts running a little erratically, I know it's getting some moisture in the gas because the alcohol absorbs moisture like crazy. And
is that like a real problem up here too with like the salt? Doesn't that cause rust?
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother issue. But so the moisture, when it absorbs and when it gets into the gas, you get water in your gas. It doesn't really, it sort of sheds. You can drain it out.
Is that why it's really bad to accidentally leave your gas tank open?
Oh yeah, you definitely shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I've only ever accidentally done that.
And like a lot of people who store gas cans, they'll like lose the little sealing lids that go on the gas cans when they store their 5 gallons of gas, or like the O-rings will be like cracked or deteriorated. Basically, if you can take your gas can and you put your gas cap tight and you're able to like squeeze air out of it, it's compromised, and you better use that gas within a week. Better put it in something because it's going to start going bad.
Walmart bag. I'm just kidding. Have you seen those videos?
I've seen that. That's insane. Yeah, and like where the guy puts a tarp in the back of his S10 pickup truck and he's literally just filling it up with gasoline.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
I mean, I
just
so stupid. I couldn't believe that's real. Why. Actually,
Now I understand that's a huge surface area for air to be touching it.
Well, but it's very flammable.
No, yeah,
All those
that's the main
fumes.
thing. I thought it just seemed so dangerous.
And I
driving down the road, somebody throws their cigarette behind them out the window.
I have a hard time believing that was real.
Yeah,
but
people are pretty dumb.
There are dumb people. They were, filling up, milk jugs with gasoline and walking them back to their house to put it in a generator during some hurricane that hit in Long Island, and like the milk jug is like dissolving, because the gasoline's eating the plastic that the milk.
When I was a kid, I watched my dad fill up a styrofoam cup with gasoline and try to carry it back to the truck.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Did it melt?
Yeah, of course it melts. It turns into sticky bomb or like napalm.
Yep.
It's horrible stuff.
Oh my God, that's so scary.
Yeah, we've done that experiment too with the styrofoam cup for sure. But anyways, yeah, Anarchapulco is a lot of fun, and there's a lot of awesome freedom-minded people there. And it's like one thing that's really cool about Anarchapulco last year is there was zero drama, but it's a high-end event. It's expensive. General admission ticket is $500. Use my coupon code JAY, you get 10% off. But it's a good event. It's in a really nice place, and the weather in February in Acapulco is like right here in Keene, New Hampshire at the 4th of July. It's just beautiful.
Nice.
Like, really nice. Like you're gonna sweat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at Bonfil Beach is where it's a little like area of Acapulco is where this happens. It's a nice little community. And all the locals like really like all the Anarchapulco attendees. 'Cause, a lot of these people, a lot of the business owners, by default are sort of anarchist libertarians anyways. And that's kind of just the way the normal society of most of the people operate, sort of as anarchists in Mexico anyways, because nobody really cares what the government says because the government doesn't really enforce anything.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard. They enforce very little, and what they do is just to like, hey, if I give you this $50 bill, will you leave me alone? And then
it can be a 100 peso bill, and they leave you alone. So yeah,
I just made up the number.
Right.
Yeah. Never been there. Well, that sounds fun. Are you going to be teaching mostly like kids with the welding stuff, or
blacksmithing? So we'll not be welding. We'll be blacksmithing, which is a little different. Last year I made coat hooks. This year we'll do some coat hooks still, and a couple other simple projects.
Is that like just for kids or kids and
it'd
adults?
be for anybody. So
nice.
Last year I had about probably 2/3 of it of the people who did projects were adults, and 2/3 were kids. There wasn't too many kids there. There's probably 25 or 30 kids there, and there was like 500 attendees or 600 attendees. Maybe it was 600. But it's
more kids at PorcFest.
Oh, way more kids. But I mean, I'm not bringing my kids this year. They're gonna stay with my mom.
To Anarchapulco, you're not bringing them?
Nope.
Oh,
because it's just I gotta buy 2 more, tickets round trip, and
possibility kids get sick in Mexico, stuff like that.
Yeah, our kids didn't get sick in Mexico.
Oh, they didn't.
No,
I thought they did. I guess it was.
No, it was after Mexico we got sick.
Oh.
We went and stayed with a friend of ours who's been vaccinated, and we all got sick at his house.
My vaccinated friends have gotten me sick and made my periods worse and all this stuff just being around them.
But anyways, and my kids are tough anyways, immune system wise. They're farm kids. They're not. We don't let them consume poisons, or we don't let Dr. Fauci, we don't let them have the Fauci ouchies or anything like that. So they're good, but but this year I'll be able to focus a lot more on being taking a more of a role in the Anarchapulco experience. I'm going to help those guys out with some things. I'm going to get there a few days early. It's a great crew. It's a great time, and it is the best people in the freedom community, in my opinion, go there. But and I mentioned that to Jeff Browick. I was like, wow, this is a really great event. Everybody here is like top notch. And he says, and there's no drama. And he goes, yep, that's because it's expensive. And, you basically got to have your S together if you're going to come to Anarchapulco.
That's something I've noticed. The worst types of people we meet in the libertarian community are people who, they got all the don't tell me what to do stuff down, but they don't have their lives very together at all, and a lot of those people end up sleeping on couches and stuff like that. And it's just understanding the non-aggression principle doesn't automatically put someone in a good person to be around category.
Ernie Hancock calls them slacktivists.
Yeah.
How do you stop the slacktivists from showing up at your house and couch surfing and playing video games when they're supposed to be there to help you out?
I do it by being a bitch. That's how I do it. I did want to talk about this story, though. We have this story from NBC. Stu brought in. 10-year-old walks alone a mile away from home in Georgia, leading to his mother's arrest. When I was a kid, I walked more than a mile away from home. My mom wouldn't know where I was. I'd be with my friends somewhere playing in like a dangerous stream. I remember thinking like I could have like gotten sucked under the highway in that stream I was playing in. But anyways, my mom didn't know where I was, and then when the street lights came on, I went home. But I also lived around military bases, like so many kids. It was still kind of normal there, but and in Tennessee and Texas. But, and I know like Gen X people, I think you both are, always like to say that their generation was the last people like that, but I swear it was still like that when I was a kid. And
there's kids like that right now, obviously, according to this article. And I know of kids like that here in New Hampshire that, they're 9-10 years old and they've got freedom to go ride their bikes down the road, down to the friend's house, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And in New Hampshire, it's so safe. It just, I can't imagine not letting a 10-year-old, is that what? Yeah, 10-year-old to walk a mile away from home in New Hampshire and be all scared about it. Especially if you just give them like pepper spray. Like I take walks with my pepper spray.
Or their own sidearm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great kids' guns now.
Can kids legally own guns in New Hampshire? I never thought about it.
I don't know,
you have
but
to be 18, 21 or something. I never thought about that.
I don't know. I would never ask.
I know of many kids that are 9, 10, 12 years old that are with their parents and they're packing their own pistol.
Whoa, that's cool.
And I know a bunch of kids that have already, shot multiple squirrels, with their 22 that, they're not even 9 years old yet.
Whoa. Well, so let's get into the story because it seems just absolutely awful. It says Brittany Patterson, 41, said she was shocked that her son's stroll could lead to a criminal charge. I'm shocked too. A Georgia woman was arrested and accused of allegedly endangering her son, all because the unsupervised 10-year-old walked less than a mile away from home, officials said. Brittany Patterson, 41, had taken another son to a doctor on October 30th, and she became mildly annoyed but not at all worried when the Fannin County Sheriff's Department called her to say her son Soren had wandered from their rural home in Mineral Bluff and into town. It's not a super dangerous or even dangerous at all stretch of road, Patterson told NBC News in an interview that aired Wednesday. I wasn't terrified for him or scared for his safety. So the mom isn't scared for his safety, but the cops they care more. They care more about Soren's safety.
So there's federal money for police departments when they charge a parent or anyone with child endangerment, and they get that federal money when there's a conviction.
Whoa.
Or a plea bargain.
Wow. I believe it because sometimes it's just how could they possibly believe they're doing something good when they found a kid who's 10 walking on a not dangerous road alone. They even bring him home. And then they think, taking his mom away for the night, that will make everything better. I'm doing something good. I don't believe them. I don't believe the whole thing. Lots of libertarians like to say, a lot of times you'll be like, but why are they so bad? And there's always that libertarian.
Because they want to break up families.
There's always that libertarian that will say, I think they think they're doing something good. And I just don't believe that anymore.
No, I don't think they think that. In fact, I wonder how you can be the head of one of these, local state departments and see a letter come across your desk that says, hey, we'll give you extra money if you can break up families, and you're okay with that?
That's insane. That's seriously, that's psychopathy.
That is. That's absolutely parasitic behavior.
Yeah, it's like these family judges in these courts are all diabolically evil people. Mm-hmm. And they actually somehow, I don't know how this works, they're getting personal money. So Mike Gill's been screaming about this for years. He'd actually be a good one to be in the Department of, Government Efficiency. Mike Gill, he had the New Hampshire NH State of Corruption website is his website. Just check him out. He's kind of loud and belligerent, but boy,
he called in that one time.
Yeah, there's very little that that anybody can, disprove that man's got to say. He's sort of like, New Hampshire's Alex Jones is what he essentially is. It's like you go start looking at everything Alex Jones said, there's very little that you can find. He's like got a 99% right. And
Did you know that the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting was faked just to get the government to be able to pass more draconian gun law bills? The more you know.
I didn't know that. But
I knew it wasn't
that's what
as described.
But that's what I suspected to be, because these guys lie about everything.
When you aren't allowed to say something on the radio, I just have to say it. Like, I would fight it way harder than Alex Jones. It kind of made me sad that after he lost, he was like, and I am so sorry, and I'm going to pay this bill. I was like, I would never give up fighting. I wouldn't care if they never dropped it till I died.
Well, there was no trial. It was a summary judgment. And I just heard some stuff today that they were supposed to auction off. Infowars.com was taken from him. Alex Jones basically got it back. The judge came into the proceeding because they weren't actually auctioning it off. What they had done is the auction had done a deal with some of the Sandy Hook victims and the Onion. So the Onion would end up with it, and they basically took the compensation money that they were supposed to get from selling the Infowars.com to the highest bidder, and the Onion was not the highest bidder. There was many more bidders. And they sent it to the Onion, but like one of the alleged victims of Alex Jones, or several of them, agreed to basically like not take money and like take ownership in Infowars. I don't know all the details, but basically Alex Jones, as of now, has Infowars back. And
I didn't hear about that. I heard all the way up until like the Onion bought it.
Yeah, so now he's got it back. I listened to him on freedomsphoenix.com. It was pretty close to the top of the page.
Alex was on?
It was an article in there from ban.tv, which is Alex Jones' website. And Alex Jones was explaining how, they kicked him out of his building and they never had a judge's order to do it. All this stuff that these, security companies have done, not even sheriffs involved. And they've had no judge's orders. And they present an order that like doesn't have a signature on it. And this is kind of stuff they do all the time. Even like in land court, when I lost my house, the judgment from land court has no signature of a judge on it. The Massachusetts land court system, there's no signatures from judges.
Well, yeah. How often do you think that gets checked?
Right. And these sheriffs and
just like a rubber stamp anyway.
Right. Yeah. And it's there's not even a signature on the signature line. Nothing. Not even a rubber stamp. Nothing. They're not there. And if you start looking at these judgments from land court, none of them have signatures in them. And then they say, oh, well, that's a copy. The original one has a signature. Okay, let's see the original one. And they won't produce it.
When I was a kid, and I think all kids mostly kind of think like this without being guided, it's like you think of like why people do the thing they do every day, just like, oh, they're just like a cartoon character. The trash man basically has always been the trash man. That's just what he does. He does it out of the goodness of his heart almost. But when you get older, you start to think about incentives, why people do things. And I think people just need to go out their entire days thinking like of the incentive, why somebody they see doing anything is doing it. And then they'll start wondering more like why the government people are doing the certain things they do.
They're part of an academic cult or a cult that was bred on and brought to introduced them by academia. The years of brainwashing they have, school, high school, college. And then they join that cult because basically you go to college, you get a government job.
603-283-6160. More coming up. Don't go anywhere. It's Free Talk Live.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, announcements came thick and fast from the US President-elect Donald Trump with who he plans to fill up his cabinet. Some of those announcements raised eyebrows and led to concern from Republican senators from within his own party. In particular, the pick for Attorney General Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman who has been under investigation for sex trafficking. Everson's Mitch McCann has more.
According to reporting from the New York Times, a number of Republican senators appear skeptical of Matt Gaetz's chances of being confirmed as America's Attorney General. He's got his work really cut out for him, Senator Joni Ernst reportedly chuckled, while Senator Susan Collins said, "I was shocked by the announcement." In recent years, the Florida congressman had been the subject of a sex trafficking investigation, which resulted in no charges being laid. Hours after President-elect Trump announced the nomination, Gaetz resigned from Congress. Mitch McCann, New York.
Another top name, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, was chosen this week by the president-elect to become the US's next Secretary of State. Trump also announced the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. Everson's Iris Spitzer reports.
In a statement, Trump described Rubio as a fearless warrior who will never back down to our adversaries. The 53-year-old Republican, who has been a Florida senator since 2010, has previously advocated for taking a hard line towards countries including China, Iran, and Venezuela. He's generally seen as more of an interventionist than Trump, although some more recent comments, such as advocating trying to wind down the war in Ukraine, indicate that he may be shifting his views to be more aligned with the president-elect. Trump also announced the nomination of former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. If confirmed, she would oversee 18 spy agencies and provide a daily briefing for Trump on intelligence issues.
This week, it was confirmed that the Republican Party has held on to the U.S. House of Representatives. The party also flipped the Senate, and this week confirmed Senator John Thune to be the next majority leader of the Senate. And the US President-elect Donald Trump returned to the White House this week to meet with outgoing President Joe Biden. The sitting president told his predecessor and successor that he looks forward to a smooth transition after the former president retook the Oval Office in last week's election. Everson's Benji Hire has more.
The emotion neutral, the tone and mood cordial. At least, that's what was on display for cameras before presidents past, present and future conversed behind closed doors for almost 2 hours. Joe Biden offered his congratulations to Donald Trump, welcoming back to the White House someone he's previously said is a danger to democracy. Trump responded, quote, "Politics is tough and not a very nice world, but I appreciate it very much," adding that the transfer of power will be as smooth as it can get. A stark contrast to 4 years ago when he refused to invite Biden to transition proceedings, falsely claiming in 2020 that the election he lost had been stolen from him.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at Elon Musk's role in the planned government of President-elect Donald Trump. Together with businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, the Tesla and SpaceX owner has been appointed to something called the Department of Government Efficiency, which is a government agency that doesn't even exist yet and can only be created at cabinet level by an act of Congress. Karoom Basra is the Deputy Director of Unchecked UK, which campaigns for business regulation.
I think what we are concerned about, and what I'm particularly concerned about, is a conflict of interest arising where Musk is able to sort of set the rules for himself in the game that he's playing. So we know that the companies that Musk runs, Tesla, SpaceX, and X itself, have been subject to multiple violations kind of when it comes to workplace safety, pay, environmental protections. And we now have the chief executive of those companies set to be in charge of protecting Americans. I think it's a real issue.
It is, however, very unclear what resources and powers Mr. Musk will have to shrink the size of government in the United States. But there's no doubt that after contributing $119 million of his own money to a political action committee supporting Donald Trump's campaign, he is enjoying an outsized influence around the transition table at Mar-a-Lago. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And that's the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
NASA announced the discovery of a mile-wide asteroid this week that could potentially trigger a global level of extinction, forcing upscale fashion retailer Nordstrom out of business. Researchers confirm that the celestial object is traveling at speeds exceeding 29,000 miles per hour, threatening to slam into the planet with more than 1 million megatons of force, enough to jeopardize operations at all 117 full-line Nordstrom locations.
Unless we can find some way to divert or intercept the asteroid, all 7 billion people on Earth, including all 62,500 Nordstrom employees, may die. Even if the asteroid breaks into smaller pieces upon entering to the atmosphere, a death toll as low as several hundred million could still slow foot traffic in stores and reduce online orders from Nordstrom's subsidiary, Hot Look.
Humanity is surprised it still hasn't figured out an alternative to letting power-hungry assholes decide everything. And a magical office worker is able to turn everything he touches into more work for his colleagues.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And we've been podcasting since podcasts began, but we're launching a new podcast anyway. Our new podcast is a 30 to 45-minute show releasing once a week, and you can find it at freetalkcast.com. It's brought to you by the same people who bring you Free Talk Live, and we'd love for you to check it out. The existing radio archive isn't going anywhere. This is just a new show designed from the start to be a podcast, so check it out at freetalkcast.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Stu,
and Jay.
And we do have a caller on the line, so unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Oh, howdy. Yeah, I was interested in that case of that kid that walked a mile and got his mom arrested. Mm-hmm. I found that article on WSB Radio down in Georgia, mm-hmm. and at the end of the article, it says that the mother could have gotten the problem resolved if she had just pled guilty and then allowed a GPS tracking device to be on her son's phone. Mm-hmm. So it gets into this kind of creepy 1984 world where the police would basically have a budget to follow a 10-year-old kid around.
Wow.
I mean, you think about that. You know, every if a person is paranoid and they think that everybody's watching them, you got to think about it in terms of a budget. That somebody has got to be watching you, and then that person has got to have a supervisor, and that supervisor's got to have a supervisor. And it doesn't matter if it's a kind of a guilty person or an innocent person, that there's an industry of snitches or an industry of trackers. And if I remember right, the East Germans, before the Berlin Wall fell, they had East Berlin and West Berlin. The East Germans had the greatest amount of snitches in the world. And they had 2% of their population were snitches. And after 9/11 happened, George Bush put together Homeland Security with a guy named General Poindexter. And General Poindexter was trying to put together the Information Awareness Network. And that was going to basically set up 4% of America having snitches or being snitches. So they would have doubled the worst tyranny by having 4% of America be snitches. And so just thinking about this case of that 10-year-old kid, when I was a kid, when I was 6 years old, I was selling newspapers 3/4 of a mile from my house, standing right on the corner, running into the street to hand cars a newspaper. We would walk across the golf course all the time to see friends, and that's clearly more than a mile away. It's kind of preposterous to imagine that the cops would be wasting time. And I was trying to figure out where this town was. What is it? Mineral Bluff, Georgia. I mean, they must have the tiniest budget there is, and to try to figure if they're trying to cash in on the snitch economy.
They're always trying to cash in on whatever incentive they can get. Like I said, basically the Hillary Clinton's, Child Care Act 1997, which needs to be totally abolished. Hopefully that'll get done here pretty quick.
Yeah, it doesn't take a village; it takes a family.
That gives all kinds of incentives, and one of them is anybody that is convicted or pleads guilty or whatever to the child endangerment, that local police department gets a cash infusion from, or whatever agency writes the warrant, basically.
Well, that sounds like that total information awareness program that General Poindexter put together. And as a matter of fact, there are two more examples I can think of. One is really friggin' ugly, and that's the one down in Texas, where they've made abortion so illegal that any woman that even thinks about having an abortion can be prosecuted. And they've created a $10,000 bounty for people that turn in women that even think about having an abortion. And what makes it worse is there's a famous opera called Tosca, and it's about a famous singer, and she's got a boyfriend who's in the revolution against the king, and he's caught, and she's told by the judge that if she makes love to the judge that she'll save his life. Well, she does, and he doesn't. Her boyfriend gets executed. So in the case of Texas, they've got a really criminal who is the Attorney General of Texas. His name's Ken Paxton. And Ken Paxton would be responsible for that snitch money, the $10,000 per woman that's even thinking about having an abortion. Now, you think about that as a budget buster. That the state of Texas has got to pay secret snitches to find out if a woman is even pregnant, much less whether or not she's considering an abortion. Talk about a budget buster. They're not going to be able to fix the roads if every woman. But what's worse is that you think about the snitch money. Is that taxable money? When you file your taxes, do you file the snitch money that you get? I doubt it. And
I don't know,
that
because there are
makes-
snitches right now. Like, do they have to file the tax money that they get? I don't know. People get paid from cops to give them information on, like, drug dealers in their neighborhood, their friends, whatever, all the time.
Well, that gets into, there's a lot of layers of that, because when you think about, getting caught by the person that you turned in, all you have to do is find the ledger, and then you find every snitch in the state or in the county or whatever.
Oh, good excuse. We just won't put it on any ledger, and we'll just pay them under the table. Just kidding. I'm sure that some of that happens.
What I'm alleging is that Ken Paxton is coming up with fake snitches. It's $10,000 per charge per person.
Yeah, so you just hand that out like a personal gift.
Yeah, I mean, that gets into different layers. There's a Supreme Court ruling that just happened a few months ago that said that a bribe is no longer a bribe. If you try to bribe a politician and you tell him vote my way, but you don't pay him before the vote, you pay him after the vote, well, that's called a tip. And the Supreme Court just ruled that that's legal and that's not a bribe.
Tipping is bribery, though.
Yeah, what I'm leading up to, what I'm alleging is that Ken Paxton is pocketing that money. And that he is keeping the biggest bulk of it, and he's just declaring that this woman or that woman was, going in on having an abortion, and the snitch money becomes just a private slush fund for the criminal who is the Attorney General of Texas. And when you remember that Texas is the second biggest state in the nation, it's the volume of basically about 25% of the 49 states. So, the land area of the biggest land area in the lower 48 is Texas, and all of those people they're basically slaves down there. Free the slaves of Texas from that criminal who's their attorney general, and not a woman she can't trust her girlfriends anymore. She can't trust her mother. She can't trust her sister.
That's so scary.
All the women are.
That's why I always say, like, I personally am against abortion. I would never get an abortion unless, like, very serious circumstances don't need to get into. But I'm not pro-abortion at all, and I still think it should be legal, because all of this that you're talking about is so much worse. The idea that cops can just come into people's house on a snitch because you may have been considering an abortion, that should be 0% anyone's business except you and your husband and your doctor.
But that's what happens when the left gets so radically insane to where they're quite literally pushing, like, I call it recreational abortion.
Yeah,
what they're pushing.
I agree.
And the thing is the abortion industry, and that's another thing these guys were talking about on Tim Pool's Culture War. So many pregnant women are coming over the border, and they're running them right to abortion clinics and having abortions because the material from the aborted babies is so valuable.
Yeah, like in Baltimore, they burn it for energy.
Well, they take like organs and tissue, and there is an absolute entire marketplace to sell this stuff for skincare or something. All kinds of things. I don't even know.
There's some skincare with like stem cells in it, and I just have to be like, where did they get that? I mean,
all kinds of stem cells, and stem cells is a big thing.
Also, in vaccines, there's stem cells apparently. And thank you for the caller. Call in whenever you have anything else to talk about. Very interesting stuff here. Different conversations being brought up.
But the other thing with abortion, I want to bring up the biggest thing with abortion that I've observed, and I know some women that have had abortions, and it wrecks them.
Yeah,
it totally brings on a lifetime of mental illness.
Yeah,
I can literally think of
like a lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can think of 2 women I know that have done a really, really, really good job working on their mental illness, but it still affects them.
Wow.
And the other thing too is, like, if you have one abortion, there's I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, but you are way more likely to have, you are a much greater risk for all kinds of cancers. Breast cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer. and just general like all kinds of like cancer issues in general. And then if you've had like 2 abortions, these things and there was
and infertility rises.
That too. There was one girl I know that she had 9 abortions.
Oh my God.
She's like 15, 20 years older than me. And she had, was riddled with cancer like 15 years ago and, passed away shortly after that. And she had no kids at all, but basically had, 9 of these. And she was sort of a relative of a very close friend of our family, and constantly had mental health issues, was in and out of, seeking, psychiatric care, was, on different types of meds, over the years, and, and it was like, it was like her form of birth control. I mean, it's a pretty crazy thing, but it is like, that's the warning label that I think should be presented as like, what are the results of this? Because the thing is, if like you're just like hell bent on not having a baby, there's tons of people out there, good people that would love to adopt newborns. There's a whole bunch of evil people too that are involved with the state, in this adoption thing also. But the thing that it's like, and I feel like a lot of the younger generations, especially the lefties, and the kids that are growing up in urban areas and sort of being indoctrinated, like, and their parents are lefties especially, they're like, well, I don't have to, be careful. I don't have to be responsible. I can just go get an abortion.
Yeah, and it's like, it's like risk-free. You just don't you're not pregnant anymore. Nothing further. It's over. Like, that's how it is presented, absolutely, to women.
A friend of mine, about a year ago, we had or it was a couple of years ago, we saw like some campaign ad, some like campaign thing I did. Was actually a thing that you videotaped a little bit, I believe, and put up. And he was like, "Oh, I saw that, and yeah, it's one, it's cool. You ran for state representative and blah blah blah. Didn't get elected, but he started talking about like a recreational abortion I had mentioned, and he's like, yeah, he goes, I was hooking up with this girl a couple weeks ago, and he's like, are you on the pill? And she goes, oh no, don't worry about any of that stuff. I'll just get an abortion. It's fine. I've gotten them before. It's not a big deal.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, I didn't talk to that girl anymore. I was so turned off.
There's like men I know that like it's harder to tell as like the women I know who've had abortions, but there's men I know who would be the father of a baby that got aborted, and even though they are like they're part of the decision and everything, it like has wrecked them.
Yes. In fact, I do know of a guy who has essentially impregnated many girls, and there was many abortions, and it is literally haunting him now.
Oh my God!
He's in a rough spot.
Wow.
It's and the thing is, it's like and that's that it's and I know guys who got girls pregnant. And the girl's like, yeah, I don't want the baby, and the guy's like, I want the baby, and he's got no say, and that can really ruin a guy too. I know of a guy who's just like, he's just not interested in women. He won't.
You just really have to freaking vet people before you start having sex with them. I don't understand the type of person that doesn't do that. I don't understand that.
Well, there's millions of them that have a Tinder account. They're just looking for the quick and easy hookup, and I believe that the internet devices, with the availability of pornography, really just incentivize this stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Abortion has become a very hot topic, and the thing that concerns me about all of this is it seems like everybody's got an opinion about what government should say about whether or not you can have an abortion and basically murder your own baby. I think it's better that you got ladies out there having 9 abortions and murdering 9 of their own offspring than it is to have any kind of a government law about it. Because as soon as you let the government decide anything about abortion, Next thing you know, they'll be mandating abortions.
Sure. Yeah.
You'll have licensure to even have children.
Oh my God, yeah. That's another an opposite spectrum. Either like cops going into houses to arrest women who had miscarriages, one end, and then other end is like, well, now you can only have a baby when we say you can. Like, it's not like that's never happened. The one-child policy is a real thing.
Well, not only that,
China.
I mean, a massive epidemic is, I know of also multiple women who have who are on, basically the welfare dole. They have or disability or some of some sort, and they have multiple children from multiple fathers. And then so it's like, oh, you got baby number 5 right now, and there's 5 different baby daddies, and you're pregnant, and since you are technically a ward of the state because you're on welfare, they essentially you agree to be theirs when you sign up for that benefit you take from the state, and then the state could easily just turn that right into, and they've done this before from what I understand. In fact, they've sterilized people because their IQ wasn't, that was a thing in the 80s. They were sterilizing women who had IQ lower than whatever.
They said something like three generations of imbeciles is enough.
Yeah, and
something really offensive.
And so anyways, I do see that pendulum getting swung hard to where like, oh, so you got all these babies and the state's taking care of you and you're pregnant again, forced abortion. And when the real solution is stop subsidizing single moms.
Yeah, stop putting that incentive out there.
Stop subsidizing poor people, because if you subsidize single moms, you're going to have more single moms. If you subsidize poor people, you're going to have more poor people. If you subsidize sugar, you're going to have more sugar-related diseases.
I just think, I remember I wanted to say this earlier in the show. You talked about before how you went on a diet to lose weight, and what your diet was you didn't eat anything the government subsidizes.
Correct.
And I basically accidentally did that simply by learning about good nutrition. Like, basically a bunch of the stuff I don't eat now is subsidized by the government, quote unquote, coincidentally, because like when I stopped eating corn, I think that was the most noticeable any diet decision I've ever made. It was like day and night. Like, I realized how much corn I was eating, cut it all out, and it was like day and night. I was like, a veil was lifted off me. Like, I had so much less brain fog throughout the day. So I think that they purposely subsidize a lot of stuff that is not good for you. Like, the better kind of sugars to be eating are fruit juices, maple, honey. You have a little bit of like white sugar, it's not going to kill you, but like if you're running off of those first ones I mentioned, your cells have all the energy they need to get the things done that they need done. Your cells literally need energy to like push things through your gut, and they get that from sugar. I don't think the government should be allowed to tell. That's what I'm really scared about RFK is, like, if he starts saying like, oh, listen, I'm going to tell you guys what to eat so you could be healthy, that's going to start freaking me out really bad. Like, that would be something like that would cause me to like leave the United States. It's like, I have like a very high tolerance for bad things happening in the United States because I don't want to live anywhere else. But if they start telling me I can't eat sugar, I'm gone. I'm going to Argentina.
Yeah, speaking of RFK, it makes me a little nervous that a guy with his background and his family and all of that isn't just screaming, throw the ring into the fire. Like absolute anarchist.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
His family is creepy. Like,
he knows what the game is.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't, he's got to be incredibly stupid, but he doesn't show any signs of that.
There's no possible way he doesn't know like what the game is. Like, his dad would take all these deals from like mobsters and like they all just played with their money and power to get things done. No one actually had any morals. They just wanted to get more and more power. They are creepy people. They like literally were like hands in the pockets of mobsters.
Yep.
Like,
and I have a hard time seeing him as any different than that.
Yeah, me too. I agree. So I'm not like, I'm so excited about RFK. If he simply listens to more intelligent people that he puts into his, like our FDA, new FDA, and if he like just ends subsidies, that would be, oh my God, chef's kiss, best possible decision. But if he starts making things illegal, oh no.
And the thing is, so let's say they ban herbicide like glyphosate. He's talked a lot about banning glyphosate.
Really?
And what that's going to do, the farming is it's going to increase the cost of weed control tremendously.
I've also heard that there's a million other, maybe not a million, there's a ton of other poisons that are similar to glyphosate, but they don't get talked about as much. So it just seems like if you ban one, they'll just start using another one that's horrible.
Sure, yeah. There's classifications that would, of it they would have hopefully blanket cover. But nobody would be using glyphosate if they weren't subsidizing the use of Roundup. Because it would be too expensive.
603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up. I want to read exactly what are all the details. The authorities tried to force this woman whose kid took a walk into agreeing to. We're going to get into that. More Free Talk Live coming up. Don't go anywhere. 603-283-6160.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, announcements came thick and fast from the US President-elect Donald Trump with who he plans to fill up his cabinet. Some of those announcements raised eyebrows and led to concern from Republican senators from within his own party. In particular, the pick for Attorney General Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman who has been under investigation for sex trafficking. Ever since Mitch McCann has more.
According to reporting from the New York Times, a number of Republican senators appear skeptical of Matt Gaetz' chances of being confirmed as America's Attorney General. He's got his work really cut out for him, Senator Joni Ernst reportedly chuckled, while Senator Susan Collins said, "I was shocked by the announcement." In recent years, the Florida congressman had been the subject of a sex trafficking investigation, which resulted in no charges being laid. Hours after President-elect Trump announced the nomination, Gaetz resigned from Congress. Mitch McCann, New York.
Another top name, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, was chosen this week by the president-elect to become the US's next Secretary of State. Trump also announced the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. Everson's Iris Spitzer reports.
In a statement, Trump described Rubio as a fearless warrior who will never back down to our adversaries. The 53-year-old Republican, who has been a Florida senator since 2010, has previously advocated for taking a hard line towards countries including China, Iran, and Venezuela. He's generally seen as more of an interventionist than Trump, although some more recent comments, such as advocating trying to wind down the war in Ukraine, indicate that he may be shifting his views to be more aligned with the president-elect. Trump also announced the nomination of former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard as his Director of National Intelligence. If confirmed, she would oversee 18 spy agencies and provide a daily briefing for Trump on intelligence issues.
And the US President-elect Donald Trump returned to the White House this week to meet with outgoing President Joe Biden. The sitting president told his predecessor and successor that he looks forward to a smooth transition. FSN's Benji Hire has more.
The emotion, neutral. The tone and mood, cordial. At least, that's what was on display for cameras before presidents past, present and future conversed behind closed doors for almost 2 hours. Joe Biden offered his congratulations to Donald Trump. Trump responded, quote, "Politics is tough and not a very nice world," adding that the transfer of power will be as smooth as it can get. A stark contrast to 4 years ago when he refused to invite Biden to transition proceedings, falsely claiming in 2020 that the election he lost had been stolen from him.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear, like t-shirts and hoodies, are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny Liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. With you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Stu,
and Jay.
And we definitely want to finish this story here, so I'm just going to finish it off before I go to the phones. So I really wanted to talk about what the cops wanted to do, because this woman's kid took a walk less than a mile away from her home. Cops found him, took him home and arrested the mom. So the thing that's really like novel about this, as far as like to me at least, like I hadn't heard of anything like this before. The mom got arrested, booked on suspicion of reckless conduct, and forced to post $500 bail. And then authorities offered to drop the charge if Patterson, the woman, signs a form that outlines a safety plan guaranteeing that her child would always be under a watchful eye. Patterson refused to sign the form and said she'll contest the charge, which carries up to a year behind bars, which is just like, that's awesome. She's a hero.
That is outstanding. Not very many people will stand up for themselves anymore, and I'm so proud of this woman.
Don't take the plea deal.
Right, and don't let the government put GPS on your kids. So that's what they wanted to do ultimately. It says, she's quoted as saying, "This is not right. I did nothing wrong. I'm going to fight for that." And her lawyer, David DeLugas, rhetorically asked whether mothers and fathers now have to know the precise locations of their children at all times. Are all parents going to have to put GPS on their child, he said. The parents get to decide for their children unless it is unreasonably dangerous. Okay, maybe I read that wrong. I don't think the cops were trying to put GPS on her kids, but it was going to be some kind of a safety plan. She would have to agree to things. I don't know, was GPS... Because they like have that now. They can like put geolocation stuff on pictures and then like force you to take a picture and turn it in. That was the thing Ian had to do during house arrest.
I don't know. Even if they were only asking her to say sorry, I'm glad she said no, because they were totally out of line with that.
And the thing with that GPS program, I'm sure it's something that costs like $150 a month. I'm sure you need like the worst tech phone to run it with. You know, you probably can't even use it. Well, I don't know. You should be able to use any app on any phone, but
in a room full of bureaucrats to make sure the thing keeps running.
Right, and I'm sure that the the company that offers this service gives serious kickbacks back to all the people involved, because just the way these things work, it's ridiculous.
But then it was some kind of like company in Indiana that he'd have to call if there was problems, and they like were contracted by the government. Yeah, I'm sure they do silly goofy things in order to get their contracts and pay the government back somehow.
Yeah, it's just like these parenting classes they want you to take. It's some third party contractor, and it's very expensive, and it's basically from what I understand, useless garbage. I've never took any of them, but I've talked to some people that have, and it's all designed to keep people down and keep you broke. And
if the government really cared, wouldn't they give you those for free?
Yeah, right.
If the government just wanted you to be a better parent, it wasn't all about taking money from you.
No, they want to destroy families.
Yep, I really do think that's part of it.
Because demoralized kids, unhappy kids, can be that are fearful, can be controlled and directed with their fear and their depression. And happy, strong families are very, very, very hard to disrupt.
That's what I said to my friend last night when we were talking about like the 4D thing, that the government and the Federal Reserve basically somehow or another gives money to judges to take kids away. Well, I said, how could it possibly be? It's obviously not about money to these people that are able to create the money. I think that it's so obvious that they want to separate families because it makes, like you're saying, people that are easier to control. And also, there are tons of things they do that I just believe are for no reason other than to make us miserable. Because when you're miserable, you're dependent, you're not thinking straight. Like, just down to, like, the way they want to kill our pets. Like, the food that our pets eat all has flaxseed and fish oil in it. It's so bad for your pets. It kills your pets earlier. People's pets are dying or getting more diseases than ever, just like humans are.
Right, and they're vaccinating the heck out of the pets also.
Yes, and I'm just like, why would they care enough to kill our chihuahuas? It's because they just want you miserable.
It is. They just want life to be really hard for everybody.
I agree.
So I was in the horse business for a good chunk of my life, mostly selling hay. I had hundreds of customers, and most of these people are really into dogs. A lot of them are into breeding dogs competition dogs. And a lot of these people would have dogs and cats at their farm that like live into their 20s. And the commonality is they're like, yeah, I got the cat a rabies shot once.
Same with Ian and his dog that lived 16 years.
Got him a rabies shot once. That's all they need. No other, but they usually have, a lot of these people have these like stables and farms and things like that. They have a really good relationship with veterinarians, and veterinarians are like really good, I think.
I have a horrible one.
Well, the problem is there's a big difference between a veterinarian who shows up to work on your horse and your cow, and then the veterinarian that is running a boutique animal hospital that makes all their money off of pushing vaccines.
Yeah, and also they literally push this horrible dog food at my vet, and like the woman was like questioning me on what I feed my dog, and she was like, if you feed him anything raw, it's like gonna kill him. And I was just like, no, it's not. And she was like, why don't you feed him Science Diet, like the thing that's on the poster behind me? And I was like, well, I used to feed him Science Diet, and then I decided I didn't want to feed my dog seed oils. And she was like, oh my god, that's not scientific. And it's like, you get paid by Science Diet to make me try to convince me to feed my dog this food. Like, I don't care what you say, I'm not going to feed him Science Diet. And she was like physically noticeably angry at me.
So like a lot of these people have dogs that they use in competitions, like the Border Collies and
beautiful dogs.
One lady I did business with, she had a flock of sheep, and the sheep were for training her Border Collies.
Nice.
And what she did was she's on Cape Cod, and she would go clear geese off of golf courses. Like she hit like
with the Border Collies,
with the Border Collies every day. Before half an hour before daylight, she's at one golf course, and then she's just making these rounds at these handful of golf courses pretty much 7 days a week, chasing the geese away. And
that's awesome, because like geese are all over Ian's prison. They make such huge disgusting poops all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
You have to watch every step you take.
Yep. So anyways, and she was one that she got basically got in with some butchers, and she would be there to get all of the organ meat from, like there's a butcher, she goes and gets all the organ meat, all the heart, all the kidney, all the whatever, and then she would grind it or whatever. I think she would grind it for cats. She had some cats too, but basically her animals, her dogs never saw a veterinarian, and they all ate raw organ meat from
they're gonna die.
Just a local butcher that would was not really a local. She had to drive like 2 hours to this guy because there's no slaughterhouses on Cape Cod. She had to go to Rhode Island, I think, to get this, and that's become quite a thing too. And so that's another thing is I constantly have people hitting us up for the organ meat for their dogs, and these people who are feeding their dogs basically what a wild dog would eat.
Yeah,
the dogs are living. Like seeing a lot of 20-year-old dogs are like, wow, that dog's 20 years old.
That my vet was telling me like my dog will possibly die or get sick if he eats raw food is just like, what did she think wolves ate before they like turned into dogs? They only ate Science Diet. No. So stupid. Like they only ate like kibble somewhere that grows
Definitely
on trees.
domesticated dogs are a lot weaker than nature's wolf.
Mm-hmm.
But
I also don't think like coconut even came from wolves.
But if
I
you
don't believe
start
that.
if you start looking at the people who are into like performance dogs that are doing the agilities,
Yeah,
they're
that's
doing
so cool. They can do crazy things.
Dog shows,
Competitions, yeah.
You know, they're gonna, you know, you'll see a lot of people are either supplementing with organ meat for dogs, or that's all they're feeding their dogs is organ meat.
It kind of sucks with Coconut. He doesn't like allow me to give him an organ. He's just like, he thinks he's a human or something, and he's like, what is that? And it like pissed off Matt one time. Matt that used to be on the show, he was like, you should love this. I'm trying to give you giblets. And Coconut was like turning his head away, not like wanting to eat it, but I'll at least give him like ground stuff. And then there's like all kinds of like the not prized possession meat inside of that. And that's also why I eat ground beef all the time, because like I'm really grossed out by liver. I'll take liver pills, and I've actually been really behind on that recently. Maybe I need to get back on that, but I don't like to eat liver like cooked, and maybe it's because I'm not good at it, because I've only done it once and it was so gross, and it like
Your
honestly
parents didn't feed
traumatized
it
me.
to you when you were little.
Yes, that's 100% it. And also, no matter what my parents tried to do, I got scared of meat as a kid just because I didn't like grow up near a farm. I've said that a million times on the show. I was like, I said to my mom, I was like, why is this called chicken and also the animal is called chicken? And like I was literally like 4 or 5. I remember them looking at each other like, uh-oh. And then they looked at me and they're like, well, it is chicken. It is the animal. And I immediately pushed it away. I was like, I'm not eating meat from now on. And I went anemic, had to be put on Pedialyte, which is seed oil milk, quote unquote, crap. And yeah, I like wouldn't grow.
You ask my 3-year-old where that chicken come from, and he goes, well, we grab a chicken,
Yeah.
white one, the fat meat birds, put them in a cone, and we cut their head off.
And he's done it.
Yeah, he hasn't cut a head off, but he's definitely pulled guts out of chickens.
Oh.
Yeah, both my kids will watch me process rabbits.
Yeah, and
they know where meat comes from.
And that's just like really, really good, because being in fear of something, like that was not a fun time for me. It wasn't like being like, oh, I'm just like, I'm a cool kid who's a vegetarian. I didn't get like propagandized at all.
It could be traumatizing to have to work that out on your own.
Yeah, and my mom and I mean my dad would have to like sit at the table and like not really like yell at me, but be like, I'd be just like crying. He'd be like, we're not moving, we're not leaving this table till you take like 3 more bites, etc. And it wasn't his fault. Like I'm happy they tried to force me to eat as much meat as possible.
But you probably watched a whole bunch of cartoons with chickens that probably had some chickens as characters that
We're
talked.
talking. That's
you
a good
know, like
point.
the foghorn, leghorn.
I had
you know,
pet cats, so like we don't eat cats. Why are we eating chickens? So it was like my brain, you know.
Yep, this is why anybody listening out there, you should be butchering your chickens. First off, you should have chickens for your kids or rabbits. Either one of them you can do pretty easy. I mean, rabbits you could do in your garage in your homeowner association.
Yeah, rabbits are pretty easy.
If no, you know, as long as maybe don't say anything to anybody.
You have to keep it pretty small and clean up daily, but you could do it.
You could do it with rabbits, and then you got really
like
awesome
bark or something.
Potting soil for your potted plants. And if you're living in a home, HOA condo situation, but chickens, rabbits, they just teach kids like these just about things, so it doesn't become horrifying and shocking. And my kids have, my daughter was 6 months old or 8 months old in the backpack carrier, on my back while I was, butchering chickens. And she's been, watching it twice a year ever since. And the last couple of times now we did it with a bunch of our homeschool co-op kids. So we had kids from 3 years old to 6 years old butchering chickens with us, and we're going to do it again this next week because we do 2 rounds of chickens, one in the spring, one in the fall. And it's because the chickens that you raise for meat, they don't really do good in June and July when it's real hot and humid. So you do them in spring and fall, they do a lot better. And so it's just good sovereign living skills. Just understanding where your food comes from.
And I feel like even just like a couple generations ago, like my mom even talks about when she was a kid, her grandma, my great grandma, would go and kill one of her chickens sometimes, and that was normal to her. Just like a couple generations ago, it was just more normal. And also other girls my age have had this conversation with them, and they've been like, the same thing happened to me when I was a kid. And we all thought, until I really got into learning about nutrition, I really believed, well, I intuitively knew it's wrong to eat animals, and that's why I stopped eating animals as a kid, so it's probably really good for you. But I don't think I think it's the opposite of intuitively, because if I grew up in a regular human environment that we don't live in anymore, what most people don't live in anymore, then it would be crazy for me to think of not eating animals. So
your intuition was programmed by Looney Tunes,
probably
and
literally
Disney,
true. Yeah,
and
I never thought of that part of this.
Whatever else.
I thought more of like, oh well, I loved like my cats, so I must have thought animals cute. All animals shouldn't be eaten. But I really think that there's something to that, like Foghorn Leghorn talking. Why would I eat him? You know, that's crazy. That's really interesting. But we do have a caller waiting on the line, so I'm going to go to the phones. David in New Mexico, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm calling a man about a horse on this here livestock show.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Hey, man.
Okay. Hey, man. How you been?
Good.
Good. Now, I suppose I should check in with Bonnie. Bonnie, now, Jay did mention horses. I know usually with the livestock we talk about pigs and cows and sheep and chickens, and horses are verboten. But can we talk about horses for a minute?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Jay, have you ever seen? You got riding saddles and you got pack saddles. Have you ever seen anybody? You can make whatever you want, but on the commercial market, is there such a thing as saddlebags? Not regular saddlebags, but saddlebags that basically turn a riding saddle into a pack saddle. They go over the saddle and carry a larger volume than your typical saddlebags.
So that does definitely exist. And I can tell you that most Western saddles and what I will call Australian stock saddles, you could sort of make up a way to secure a pack mule sack to them. So have you ever outfitted like a pack mule or a pack horse with the outfit where you put like the pack saddle on them and stuff? Have you done that?
No, I've never had a pack saddle. No, just riding saddles, and never outfitted a horse for packing.
So I've definitely, when I was, I guess in my 20s, I didn't have the actual pack saddle, but I had like the fabric saddlebag type, thing that went to the pack set that went on top of the pack saddle. And I just used the Western saddle, just like a Western, a working Western saddle, not like, so a saddle that like a cowboy would use. It had like really good, front and rear billet straps on it. It had, it was all set up with the buckles so you could put a breastplate on it. And the other thing you really need to do with a pack saddle, if you're going to use a regular saddle as a pack saddle, you're going to make sure that it doesn't come over the horse's shoulders. So you'll need to put the bobtail, thing on the crupper, I think they call that. No, the croupers will keep the horse from over checking the bit. So I'm kind of rusty on this. I haven't been in it in a while, but you could definitely set up the important part is that Western cowboy type saddle fits the horse well. Number one, your pack horse, and it's really easy to take a good old Western saddle and turn it into your pack saddle rig. And they do make all types of saddlebags that go on the back of the saddle. They make saddlebags that go on the front of the saddle for while you're riding it. And then and I've definitely seen a lot of people sort of make, and we've done it myself, make our own setup to where we're just tying a bunch of gear, sleeping bags, food, containers, whatever, onto just a regular saddle. It's got the latigos for tying things down and all the buckles. And it can work pretty good. Now, if you have like a dressage saddle or an English saddle, that's not going to be possible without basically heavily modifying the saddle. But generally, if you're going to go, you wouldn't go buy like a Western saddle to turn into like a packing, rig. But you would, and the pack saddles are, their setups are, cheaper money wise than like a riding saddle of like similar caliber, depending on, what you're getting, because there's a lot less tooling goes into like a pack saddle, for example, and it's basically just, the wooden frame and some leather and some padding, and it's a lot simpler. And a lot of pack saddles also, what's nice about them, I've noticed, is you can adjust sort of the tree on them where it fits the horse over the withers and how it fits the horse. So, because the idea is the horse is comfortable. But right. I've seen a lot of guys just use harnesses for like harness driving and build pack rigs out of them, out of the harnesses, using basically take like a Western saddle pad and put it, under the harness, and it's on the horse's back, and they would either tie off or somehow secure or buckle that saddle pad so it wouldn't, wiggle out from underneath the harness or from around the harness. And then they would, over the saddle pad, the Western like saddle pad, they were able to like secure and tie everything down to the harness for the horse, but the horse wasn't really pulling anything. He's just the pack horse, and he's just following along. So there's lots of options.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The whole idea, if you were going to just do a dedicated pack trip, then why not get a pack saddle? But
Correct.
If you want to be able to do some trail, get to your camping spot, unload your gear, and then go riding, then you still have a riding saddle for each horse.
Yep. And I tell you, when it comes to like the secondary market and coming up with a used pack saddle or riding saddle, you're going to pay a lot of money for that pack saddle. And that riding saddle, if the guy likes you, he'll just give it to you for free probably. There's just a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
Well, Thanks for the call, David. I wanted to get into this article before the end of the show. This from abcnews.go.com, and Riley brought this up, but we didn't get into it last time I was on with Riley. This is just absolutely shocking. It says FEMA, which I don't remember what that stands for right now, Federal
Emergency Management Association.
Thank you. I only knew the first two. FEMA supervisor fired under investigation after allegedly advising team to avoid homes with Trump signs. This is a clear violation of FEMA's core values and principles, it says. A Federal Emergency Management Agency supervisor was fired and is under investigation for allegedly asking team members not to inspect homes in a hurricane-ravaged Florida town that had signs supporting Donald Trump's campaign up, the agency said. Wow, so the agency is one of an idiot. The incident occurred when the unidentified FEMA supervisor was surveying damage from Hurricane Milton in Florida and allegedly instructed their members to avoid the homes that had the signs, the agency said in a statement. FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell called the incident reprehensible. And I just think it's like kind of funny, not funny, but like crazy, and a good example of why we shouldn't have money that we get stolen from us to put into a fund that then we have people to help us during emergencies when they're not even going to help you.
And the thing is FEMA didn't really provide any help. In fact, they did the exact opposite. They stopped people from going in there with, supplies and stuff. They stopped actual...
In North Carolina, too.
Well, they've done this.
Yeah.
Hurricane Katrina.
I heard that, too.
A bunch of my contractor buddies went down there to basically just do work, and they were all turned away.
Wow.
You had to have special credentials that were issued by so-and-so and this, that, and the other thing. And what it was basically they just wanted the FEMA contractors, and that was it.
And licensing.
And so these guys basically were like, okay, whatever. So they just signed on with a FEMA contractor, and they all got paid like $38 an hour.
Wow.
To go do work they were just going down there to do anyways, just out of the kindness of their hearts. And they made pretty good money because they all worked like 80 hours a week, and but they were like, yeah, they were just, and my one buddy was like, everybody that is like, all these FEMA guys were basically just retards. They had no business doing any of this, what they were doing.
What was it we were talking about the other day? A caller called in. He's a truck driver. He said that there are all these people that big companies will quickly train, but they have a license to be truck drivers, but they're like just not even really learning anymore. So I don't know. I felt like that was similar. freetalklive.com for more, because this is the last segment of the night, and we'll be live again tomorrow. freetalklive.com for more if you want more from us. Thank you for listening, and peace.
Following morning reports indicating that Philadelphia High School for the Performing Arts student Samantha Bylum deals with really weird social pressures on a daily basis, Onion reporters met with the 16-year-old dance student who described feeling regularly alienated from her peers for extremely bizarre reasons.
If you're not up to date on the latest urban street art or Esperanza Spalding albums, the other students will eat you alive. It can get pretty brutal. Just the other day, everyone cut class to go watch the $1 Million Quartet musical at the Forest Theater, but nobody told me. Now I'm the only one that hasn't seen Lance Guest's rendition